MenyetAnkhEnMaat. My name is Menyet, and I am recording a different kind of video than I usually record. Usually I record like educational videos or study group videos, things like that. But I recently, and generally speaking, this, like I said, this isn't my usual arena. Um, I've seen different things going on the internet, and I know it doesn't involve me or anything like that, but I did feel like I needed to speak on it and say some things. So before I even get into the topic at hand, I wanted to give a couple of disclaimers, a couple of, well, who are you? Who do you think you are? Answers, because I know the internet can be very vicious. And yeah, so first things first. My name is Menyet. I hail from New Jersey. I am 37. Clearly, I'm a female. So I am a school teacher, high school school teacher by trade. My subject area is social studies. I've been a teacher, oh my gosh, I can't even remember. I think like 13 years now. So it's been a while. The other thing is I have been a practicing Kemite for the past, golly, I can't even remember. It's been a while, but I know it's been over 10 years. So I've been teaching in high school, and I've been learning and practicing the Kemetic legacy for quite some time now. So now that that's said, I do want to reply to a video that was made, and I'm pretty sure people have seen it by now. If not, I'm going to do that whole dual screen where I'll play it, but I'm going to play it in double time simply because it's a really long video and I've already watched it 3 times, and it's just a lot. So if you want to watch the actual video in regular time and take your time to digest what's being said, that's cool. More power to you. I just really wanted to give my commentary on it. So the first thing is people are going to say, oh, well, who do you think you are? What are your qualifications? Blah, blah, blah. I'm a regular person. Point blank, period. I study on my own. I do belong to a temple, but I also believe in scholarship. I also believe in, many different things. So that being said, that's who I am. I'm just a regular person observing what I perceive to be something that was supposed to be really awesome that just turned into kind of like a dumpster fire. And I say that, and I'm trying to be very conscious of the words that I choose, because the whole point of this video is not to malign anyone, to call people out. Like, I ain't trying to start no drama. That's not my arena. Like, I don't do that. I'm not engaging in that. Respectfully, if that's other people arena, that's other people arena. That's cool. That's not for me. That's not my cup of tea. That doesn't give me jollies or rocks. I don't really, it's not my thing. I just want to study. I want to be a better person, and I would like to be an example to other people who see the Kemetic legacy and really want to learn about it, not just the history, but how to take that wisdom and apply it to their everyday life. Like, that is my thing. That's who I am. So am I new to the whole social media thing? Not so much. It's been a gradual, but I'm not like this huge person with like mad people following them. Like, I'm cool with just like playing my part, staying in my lane kind of thing. So that. The second, yes, I'm African American. Yes, like, just because I'm fair, I already know people are gonna be like, oh, she lied, who she thinks she is, blah, 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 all of that stuff. all that light skin, dark skin, all that she foreign, she don't get it, she'll never get it. We all understand with colorism, there are some things that maybe I don't understand. And that's just, oh, like, I just have to be okay with that. You know, like, that's just the world that we live in. But I am conscious of it, and I try to be aware of it so that I don't move from that type of place. So I am not trying to come in and be like, I'm an authority, I know it all, blah, blah, blah. I'm just giving my perspective on what I saw. So who do I think I am? Who you light skin, who you think you are. And the third thing, yeah, I'm a woman. You know, I know this arena is a lot, you know, usually for the guys and stuff like that. And that is generally why I just, oh my God, didn't want to even really say anything. But after this last thing, I'm just like, oh my God, I gotta say something, gotta do something. So you know, one, I'm coming with respect. I am not name calling. I may say I don't agree with certain things or give certain clarifications or questioning. That's not to bruise any egos. That's not to step on any feet or anything like that. The whole purpose of this video for me and my perspective, my intention is that I feel like it's a whole bunch of people fighting on my behalf, and regular people aren't really being heard or listened to or addressed. We're just kind of being shouted at or yelled at. And it's like this very interesting dynamic. So that is the purpose of this video, to, I suppose, give context for outsiders, to give context for other regular everyday people, to give, to just build on the dialogue that's been established by the, you know, heavy hitters, if you will, because again, I'm just me. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to push play. And so the video came out, if I'm not mistaken, a little less than a week ago. And the video is by brother Shakka Ahmose. And the title is The Resurrection of the Kemetic Community, or Who Killed the Kemetic Community. So for the most part, just to preface this, I agree with many of his points. I think he has some great points. But again, because I also am part of the Kemetic community, you know, yeah, there are just some things that, you know, for my scholars to speak on my behalf, I would like to see other things also added in there and a little less of some other stuff. So that is, like I said, that's my purpose. I'm not trying to get at, I'm not trying to, you know, put no stabs in for nobody. Like, no, I'm not about that life. I'm not about the street life. I'm not about to have no conscious battle rap over the letter W with nobody. Like, I just want to be a better person in my everyday life. Like, all of that other stuff, like, it's not my arena, it's not my thing. And, you know, frankly speaking, it doesn't move me. But like I said, you'll see as we watch, I got my notes and I'll just kind of speak on where I'm coming from and why I'm saying the things I'm saying. So now let's go ahead and start watching the video, and I will pop in here and there with the commentary as it's being delivered.
To explore and to acquire for yourself. Okay, so why am I here? Let's talk about that. Okay, should we talk about that? I'm here. Senator, can you hear me? I'm so sure I can hear you.
I hear you loud and clear, brother.
Okay, wonderful. So it's not easy for me to do. I need to do this because many of the people, or a number of the people who I may mention, are people that I love and people that I respect, that I've grown to love and I've grown to respect. And some of them I have relationships with. But my personal relationships do not preclude me from speaking truthfully about this topic and this subject matter. Okay, it's important that you guys know that, appreciate that, and understand that. Okay, so the two is one topic broken down into two, and that topic is the resurrection of the Kemetic community and who killed the Kemetic community. So what we talk about, now here's the third part. Most people don't even realize the Kemetic community is dead. You know why? Because ain't nobody really thinking about the Kemetic community, to the best of my knowledge. there's nobody really thinking about the Kemetic community anymore. There was a time when we were the topic to discuss. We were the community that everybody wanted to be a part of and began to gravitate towards. But something happened along the way. And that's what I'm here to talk about. Because we have to talk about who killed the Kemetic community. If you don't want to say who, then we could say what. What killed the Kemetic community? If we say what, it will spare a lot of people hurt feelings. Okay, so we'll go with the what for now. And if I feel the need to, as we move on to go into the who, then I will. So let me tell you what killed the Kemetic community. I was talking to my homie Hotep Jesus earlier, and he said, well, Shakka, the Kemetic community is not dead, it's on life support. And I said to him, well, there's been a lot of dead people on life support in the past. There's nothing new. You've heard of that, Sanetta. Somebody being brain dead, legally dead, but they're still on life support, right? So the Kemetic community, whether they're on life support or not, is still dead. We're not the number one topic on people's lips anymore. And there was a time when we were in the Black community, not too long ago. If you go back to 2016, if you go back to 2015, right? You couldn't walk down the streets without people just addressing us, predicated on the truths that we were sharing and all of the lies that we were putting to bed and putting to rest. And I'm very proud of what we did, Sanetta, myself, Brother Reggie, and others. Fudishi, Professor James Smalls, and others. I'm also proud of one person I have to name in particular, Zion Lex. I'm proud of that brother because we got to watch him grow and develop from where he was to where he is now. And I take some responsibility for that. if it's okay with him, right? I like to think, great people want to believe that they influenced other great people. And not that I'm saying that I'm great, but if I just only go by what I'm told, that is how I will couch that phrase. So, but I'm very proud of the brother. I just want to put that out there. And I look forward to working with him in the future, actually collaborating and doing things together. Okay. So I'm proud of what we did on Sign of the TV as far as making the Kemetic community relevant and making the truth relevant. However, there were other elements out there who were looking, watching, and waiting to take advantage of things that had already been put in place by people like Dr. Ben, people like Dr. John Henry Clark, Francis Cress Wilson, Dr. Van Sertima, Sheikh Anta Diop, Theophilo Benga. The list goes to Wakedi Amin. The list goes on to Professor Leonard Jeffries, right? The list goes to Professor James Smalls. The list goes on and on and on. These are the people that put the Kemetic community in place. Don't let anybody lie to you. I'm going to say it again. Dr. Ben was taking Black people to Egypt as a community when none of these other people had gone to Egypt yet or had a serious following of any kind. Dr. Ben was doing that. How do I know? Because my family members went with him. My mother, my father, extended family members. They went with Dr. Ben numerous times. I have in my possession cassette tapes with my mother and Dr. Ben speaking to one another inside of the temples, inside of the pyramids, throughout this thing. So what I'm telling you is I'm speaking from the perspective of a history I witnessed unfold in front of my eyes as I grew up. And what I'm saying to you is that in the process, so what I was saying is that I was talking about a history that I witnessed unfold in front of my eyes with Dr. Ben and my mother and people like that, Dr. John Henry Clark, Leonard Jeffries, Jacob Carruthers, all of these people in Egypt together, building this Kemetic community. The Kemetic community did not just fall out of the sky, okay? It did not fall out of the sky, and it did not come out of yoga studios, okay? So we're going to be talking about that. So let's first talk about what killed the Kemetic community, because it is dead. It's not going to stay.
All right, so before he kind of transitions into the first part, so and I don't want to say too much ahead of time because I know he's kind of going to come back to this point, but the first thing that I want to say, I suppose, I don't even want to say disagree on, but it's just one of these things that, like, when you're presenting a case or something like that, again, we're talking about scholarship, we're talking about a movement, we're talking about a lot of different moving parts. So the first thing that I think that I am hearing is that he's talking from personal experience, and that's cool, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But personal experience doesn't denote universal truth, because everybody's not going to have that experience. And especially when you're talking about a movement, you have multiple, again, moving parts as part of that movement. So when he is saying, like, all of these different elders or all of these different ancestors, and they are the ones who paved the way, and this, that, and the third, it behooves me personally to think of, well, why? So when we are studying history, when we're studying like social studies and things like that, we study causation, we study periodization, we study certain things on how to examine history. So when he's saying, oh, well, all of these scholars started it, like, okay, they started it as a reaction and as part of that push-pull of that time period, that is all about, like, it's a thrust out of the civil rights movement. Like That's just essentially what it is. So as we know, if we look back into history, we had the civil rights movement going on. And then later on, we start to see this shift in our own education. So when we see the Black student unions start to develop, when we see Black studies start to come up and develop, when we see cultural centers start to come up and develop, it's this idea, and then we finally kind of see it come together in the philosophy of like Afrocentrism. But it's within this idea. It comes from the cradle of not Afrocentrism, Pan-Africanism and nationalism, because it's a result or it's birthed out of the civil rights movement, where people are very concerned about how they're being treated and so forth and so on, just like now in the 21st century, where we saw it started with Trayvon Martin. Then, you know, Black Lives Matter kind of came along, whatever you personally think about the group or not. The point is, the timeline, that's the way it happened. So Black Lives Matter came. All right, we're fighting for civil rights. Then it kind of pushed even more. That was 2012. Then it pushed even more. And then we had the riots in Ferguson. Then we had the riots down in Baltimore. Then we had, you know, so we had all of these different pushes. Then we had George Floyd, and then more and more and more. So we see, because as a reaction out of what's going on in the society, we see people now saying, oh, we need to educate ourselves. We need to grow. We need to get away from this bad system, the system that we're a part of, because, you know, there's a problem here. So let's take it into our own hands and try to solve our own problem. So totally, yes, that makes perfect sense as to what he's talking about, why it's there, and all that other stuff. Again, it's this idea that this is the only experience that I suppose, like, I would essentially question. I don't necessarily think that was the full-on intention, but I do think, again, because a lot of the people who are watching are the equivalent of an audience for Oprah, an audience for Maury, an audience, you know, they're an audience, they're a studio audience, if you will. So this is not speaking to the choir, to use that term. This is, you're speaking to a vast group of people, that are at different levels, different understandings, different background knowledge, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So to say something like that to a group of people, it gives the impression to the listener that this is truth, this is the way it's supposed to be, without addressing the context as to why it happened that way. So that's my first piece of commentary.
They did. You got to remember, the idea of resurrection comes from ancient Egypt. So the Kemetic community has that at our disposal so that we can resurrect it. But currently it's dead. And it's dead because a lot of people saw ways to make money off of it, and they didn't care if they had the cultural part of it correct. All they saw was, oh, I can get paid. Let me, and no, I'm not talking about Sunday. Sunday has been a service and has done a service to the community. And he made this community his vocation and his work legitimately. Okay, so I don't want people to automatically wonder, he's going, no, my brother Sunday.
You're right. You're right. I can't say nothing about that. There are a lot of people who have, past tense, are currently pimping the legacy. Point blank period. There's no way around it. It's wow. It's pretty bad. When it comes to, like, I have seen people learn a little bit of knowledge and, you know, just kind of go off the deep end and charge people. And, you know these people, and you know they don't have the scholarship, you know they don't have the experience, you know they don't have, you know, everything, but they learn a little bit and then say, hey, I'm doing readings. Oh, hey, come, you know, to my lecture. Oh, hey. And we can even see this in the past where we have seen people come and go that literally their whole body of work was literally just quoting the people that Brother Shakka was talking about. Like that was their career. To just, they didn't add anything new that, and I can understand people wanting to impart knowledge, to share the knowledge of the ancestors and so on and so forth. But it's just kind of like almost borderline disrespectful, some of the things that people have done. And again, it's being done because, and I was going to get to this point a little later, but the Kemetic community is not a homogenous group. It, point blank period, it's not. It's a group of people, a very vast group of people. Again, different backgrounds. We have people who grew up atheists. We have people who grew up Muslim. We have people who grew up Christian. We have people who grew up, you know, many different things. So it's a very, you know, the background is very different. But generally speaking, people come for knowledge, to grow. They believe in the 42. That's generally what binds us, is this following or desire to follow the 42. Now, granted, there are some people who just say, I'm a scholar, I'm not into that religious stuff. I know that's going to come up later in the video, so I'm not going to touch that right now. But I just want to point out, like, Kemetic people are, as of right now in 2021, are not a homogenous group. You will go to one temple and they have this way of doing it. They go to another a shrine, they have their way of doing it. You go to a society, they have another very different way of doing it. Every group is very different, and somewhat that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be like the Abrahamic traditions, because if we look at ancient Kemet, some areas, you know, promoted this thing. Some other areas promoted, you know, another group of Neteru and groups of stories and so on and so forth. So, but the difference is now we are very, very loosely bound to each other. And that is where a lot of the problem comes in, because anybody off the street without qualification can just say, I'm Kemetic, throw an Ankh up, and people who don't know any better will spend exorbitant amount of money. Like, I have seen it, mad money. And it's like, okay, for example, like, I have this crystal, this right here. I'm like, I can't, okay, this crystal, I bought it for $5. Ooh, okay, there we are. There are people who would sell it for 20. There are people who would sell it and then tell you all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. And like, not be accurate, not be, but they trying to take your money. And it's sad, because people who truly want to learn and grow get taken advantage of so much, because these other people can just, like I said, throw on something and say, I'm Kemetic, and call themselves, you know, just pick a bunch of random Kemetic sounding names and exploit. And it is a real problem. It happens so much. Like, I have seen it in groups online. I have witnessed, like, people whom I've known previously, like it. So yeah, he's definitely right with that one.
Not a part of this cabal that I'm talking about. Okay, if it wasn't for Sign 9 out of 10, you guys would have never heard from me. At least not the way that you did. Okay, so my brother gets his credit. But in any event, this is a cabal that Brother Reggie has wanted to get at for a long time, but he didn't have the proper support to do it, not from myself or from any other people. And it took my own experiences to really look at what was going on, to see what had happened, and to see how the Kemetic community got hijacked. It got hijacked. Okay, it got hijacked years ago. In fact, it got hijacked when Dr. Clark was still alive. It got hijacked when Dr. Ben was still alive. It got hijacked back in the 80s. In the 90s, the Kemetic community got hijacked. Okay, and that's why, as the Kemetic community was blossoming, you started finding all of these other different cult-like communities, these little splinter communities that begin to develop and come up. The temple of this, the temple of that, this society, that society, right? All of these pseudo-Kemetic communities that begin to pop up all over the place.
Okay. So, one, again, in scholarship, there is this thing of logical fallacy, meaning when you're making an argument, there are certain rules when you're building this argument that just make it so that you're not shooting yourself in the foot. What I'm hearing now, in my opinion, sounds like a logical fallacy, actually a few logical fallacies mixed all together. So how can I put it? Although he didn't name certain groups that exist now, many of the groups that exist now didn't exist in the 60s. And a lot of the groups that did exist back then don't exist anymore. They're not even around. So, you know, I just think it's unfortunate. That's not an apples to apples thing. Because again, like I said, a lot of those groups aren't here. Now, there are some groups that he's talking about that are still in existence. And when he is saying that, how can I put it? No, that's not the right word. I believe that these groups, well-intentioned, they were trying to help people. But you can't teach what you don't know. You can't, like, if you don't have it, you do the best you can. So at that time period, not to say that there wasn't anybody and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But because of education, and this is something that's very common, because a person may not have formal training, because they may not have the correct background information, they will fill in where they fill in. So yoga is a system. Hinduism is a system. It's accessible. People can get to it. And again, think about it. The 60s and the 70s, there was this huge revolution. Like if we go back and we look at yoga and meditation and so on and so forth. So I can understand why people who might not have had the actual training, formalized training, that could actually read Seshmedu Necher, that could actually do these things, attempt to fill in the blanks, innocently or not, that they fill in the blanks with stuff that already exists because they literally were ignorant. And I'm not saying the word ignorant as in you ignorant, how dare you? I'm saying ignorant as in the actual definition of they literally didn't know. They didn't know. Simultaneously, as time progresses, they didn't correct it. Therein lies the problem. So I think it's very, very overgeneralized to say a cult and call names. Like that is also a logical fallacy. You don't do that. That would be an ad hominem, meaning an ad hominem is when you don't agree with a person, but you don't agree with the person's perspective or what it is they're doing, but instead of saying what's wrong with their perspective and what they're doing, you actually attack them personally, like you do name calling and so on and so forth. That's not good. That is a shoot your foot in the moment like thing. Like that's not helping the argument here. So yeah, that would be the biggest one that I got for that right there. So let's keep watching.
Okay, so you say, Shakka, pseudo-Kemetic communities, what are you talking about? Well, the best way to identify a pseudo-Kemetic community is to first look at the real one. Okay, first look at the real Kemetic community. I'm talking about the modern, conventional Kemetic community. What is the first thing that you find in the modern Kemetic community? Well, the first thing that you find in the modern Kemetic community is, and Garfield, I always have to shout my brother Garfield out. I always shout out the real ones. Because Garfield can attest to this because he was around back then. Everybody hadn't always been around the real Kemetic community. But I'm talking about the United African Movement, the slave theater, okay? With Alton Maddox, Attorney Alton Maddox, right? Attorney at war, okay? I'm talking about ASCAC, First World Alliance, when Chancellor Williams would come through, okay? When so many others that I can't even think of would come through, okay? It's been so long since they've come through, I can't even remember some of the names right now. But those are the organizations in the community that I grew up in. That's what I see as the real Kemetic community, and I'm gonna tell you why. The one thing that we associate with ancient Kemet is education. Am I correct, Senator?
You're right.
Thank you. When you came into the slave theater with Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Francis Cress Wilson, Dr. Pat Newton, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, if you notice, I keep saying doctor, right? I didn't say priest this or priest that. right? I didn't say high priestess this or high priestess that. I said doctor. We were in a room full of PhDs. Granted, not everybody may have had an official PhD, but they had damn near and beyond. But we were in an academic setting.
Okay. So this one is loaded. In, again, coming from me. So this is loaded because, again, it's implying that one's personal experience is universal truth. Like, that is very dangerous because that's just dangerous, especially when we're doing the name calling thing and like we're doing these logical fallacies and so on and so forth. So the one thing that I wanted to say is, again, if we look back at the history and we look at the thrust out of the civil rights movement, we see that these different groups of people came together to educate their people. They wanted social change. That was the function. So, and I'm sorry, I'm like, I keep looking, I literally have so many notes that I took. But okay, so the first thing is that Brother Shakka always mentions these different scholars. So he didn't say Shakka Anta Diop yet, but you know, it's forthcoming. So he said Diop, he said Dr. Ben, Dr. Jeffries, Dr. Clark, Van Sertima, like he's naming all these people. Now, again, that's great. That's wonderful. I have all the respect and have learned, you know, and, you know, I'm 37. I, you know, lived in Jersey. I didn't live in New York. I didn't have access. And by the time I did, most of these people had either passed away, retired, or what have you. So, you know, I am not of the first generation. But just because I'm not part of the first generation doesn't mean that I'm not worthy or learned or anything else. I think it's very, as Gen Z says, it's very much a feature of gatekeeping, that like I'm an authority and you're not because like you just weren't there, kind of a thing. Like that's dangerous. That's very, very dangerous. So moving back to the scholars. So if we look at the scholars, we got Diop was born in, and it's very interesting when I was writing my notes and then like kind of like doing a little bit of research. Diop was born December 29th of 1923. Dr. Ben was born December 31st, 1918. Dr. Jeffries was born January 19th, 1932. Dr. Clark was born January 1st, 1915. Dr. Van Sertima was born January 26, 1935. So you think about it. These people, again, we're thinking periodization. We're thinking like history-wise right now, where they grew up in a world that, you know, clearly was very different from now. But they grew up in a world where access was not allowed, where it was vehemently denied. You were lynched, you were beat up, you weren't allowed to read, you couldn't go to the library. That stuff wasn't it. So you couldn't, you know, you weren't allowed into certain schools unless you had a whole bunch of money or something like that. You know, access to education wasn't readily available at that time, period. So they had to be self-taught for, you know, again, part of their education. I know with Dr. Clark especially, he speaks on that. So is Menyet an expert on all of these scholars? No, I'm not. Like, so, you know, well, Menyet said, chill out. Like, okay. But the point that I'm trying to get at here is that all of these people were born, except for Dr. Jeffries and Dr. Van Sertima, they were born in the 30s, so they were Depression babies. That's a whole nother different mentality because of that time period and economically and what was going on and how it had affected people, living in the United States or not in the United States. You know, like it was a worldwide depression. It wasn't just the United States. Like it was, yeah, it was all over. So it had this effect on people, like a different mentality. All the other people were, except for Diop. Diop was born in the 20s. So he kind of had a little bit of a leg up, but that also means he grew up during the Depression. And he grew up in another country. He didn't even grow up in the United States. But like all of these people being born at that time period and considering the restrictions and so on and so forth, them having to push to get education and so on and so forth, there can be mistakes. That doesn't mean that their contributions weren't amazing, that their contributions didn't bring us to where we are. Like, they plowed the lands. And as the 42 says, we will not lay to waste the plowed lands. So give them their flowers, give them their due, but that doesn't mean that they should be raised so on high that they are infallible and cannot be questioned. I think that's very problematic for us, especially if we're having a very open dialogue about resurrecting and so on and so forth. There are many different ideas and modalities that I believe need to be added to this conversation so that we're very, very clear on what we're talking about, what we're doing, where we're going, et cetera, et cetera. So considering that those scholars all had turn of the century self-education as a lot of their career, not all of it, you know, that is something. Plus, then you have the racism, then you have everything else building on top of that. So it makes sense that by the time the 60s, the 70s, the 80s are coming about, that they are very, very, very motivated to educate their people because of the lack from childhood, because of the lack from their own experiences. It's this, like, how many parents say, I don't want you to go through the things that I went through? That it's a scholarly version of that, where we need to educate our people. This is really, really important. Look at all these things that we never learned because we were denied. Look at all these things we didn't know. And if we knew it, maybe we wouldn't be in these situations. Like, again, it's a social reaction. It's a historical period reaction. So to say that the Kemetic community is only one of education at all, again, to me, is very short-sighted. It's very, very short-sighted. Is it a big piece? Yes, absolutely. Like, as Brother Shakka said, like, when we think of Kemet, we think of higher civilization. We don't think about, you know, I mean, if we wanted to think of lower civilization, we would think of Europe in the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages, like in the weird, or, you know, their time period of stuff that they were doing. Like, oh, you have a headache? You must have a demon in your head. Let's cut a hole and let it out. Like, yeah, no. We're not on that wave. So this whole thing about the real Kemetic legacy, I think that's also a fallacy because it's misleading, because it's real in one's opinion. And again, that's very dangerous, to make our opinions as though they're universal truths. But it's not like he didn't say, I think, or it's my, you know, like, it's not like he didn't indicate that. But again, when you're watching a 3-hour video, like, just like advertising teaches us, if you say something enough, it's going to be, you know, it's going to sink into the mind. So the other thing, I want to make sure that I'm saying everything, implies that scholarship. So besides the fact that it was built out of this thrust for, or this need for educating one's own people, that would be the sense. So as I said, I'm a teacher by trade. That is what I do. So if I was to sit here and educate, meaning throw information at my students constantly, that doesn't mean anything. In education, we have what's called Bloom's taxonomy, which means you can identify information, you can regurgitate information, but then the higher level thinking is, what are you doing with the information? What are you synthesizing? What are you analyzing? Where are you going with it? What are you going to do with it? How are you going to apply it? And I think it's short-sighted to say that the Kemetic community is only about the scholarship and only about those levels of knowing and regurgitating information. And again, to me, it's about applying this information. But what he's pointing out is that there are some people who go from identify and then jump all the way up to analysis and don't go through all the steps. And there have been teachers that do this, you know, as he's saying, there have been everyday people who do this. And because we are not a codified group, you know, it leads to a lot of misunderstanding and then just splintering, and everybody's all over the place and nobody's on the same page. So I just definitely wanted to bring that up. And then on top of that, it's human nature. It's human nature that if our parents did something for us, we want to do better. We want to build on it. We don't want to do the same thing as our parents. Now, granted, because of society and the way that social structures are built, sometimes people do just repeat their parents' life just in a different time period. But the goal is to elevate. Like, that's what human beings naturally try to do. Like, if we were to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like once you meet the basic needs, you grow. I'll touch more on that later. Let him get back to speaking.
This was the real Kemetic community. We were in an academic community. Now, one of the things that I need for people to know and understand is that Dr. Ben, and Reggie can attest to this, Dr. Ben and Sheikh Anta Diop said the same thing. If you read Great African Thinkers, edited by Ivan Van Sertima, Volume 1, which is about Sheikh Anta Diop, he quoted Sheikh Anta Diop. When Sheikh Anta Diop said, "We do not study ancient Kemet so that we could end up in ivory towers of spirituality." Sheikh Anta Diop said that. Dr. Ben said, "Don't let them make a new religion of this thing." Dr. Ben said that. He said, "Do not let people seize the Kemetic community and make a religious debacle of it."
Okay. So, again, I defer and I go back to sociology. And if you want to look it up, it's this theory by Atkinson, Morton, and Sue. And it's essentially, I'm about to call the wrong theory, but it's this theory that essentially just says that minorities, ethnic minorities, racial minorities, whatever. If you are a minority, you go through this process in which you learn to be a minority. And there are many steps. And one of the steps is all about rejecting the dominant culture. So what I'm hearing here, when I hear, don't let them do this, don't let them do that, again, it's that model where it's saying, first you conform, then you get distressed about what it is you're seeing. Then the third level is total rejection of any and everything that has to do with the dominant culture. And then you go on, and then you get like, you know, you get self-aware, and then, you know, and then you kind of see all the groups have similarities and things like that, or not similarities or what have you. But that's the way, when I hear that, that's what I'm hearing. I am hearing, and I'm sure other people have seen it, like, you know, you see the people on the corner or in the subway, or I'm not sure, in rural areas at the local gas station. I don't know. Sorry, I'm a suburban around New York City person, so I don't have much rural experience like that. But you know, we see these people who essentially proselytize on the corners. We've seen it when we see a lot of the riots or a lot of the protests within 2020, and you know, people on the corner, they're emotional and they're saying, do this, don't do this, F that, you know, F the system, the schools aren't teaching us anything, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, that's a stage 3 action. You're angry about what you've been taught. You're hurt by what you've been taught. So you totally reject it. If this was growing up, this is your teenage years. You know, your parents did this and your parents did that. So you rebel. That's what I'm hearing.
That's what has happened. Okay. So why am I telling you this? Because the Kemetic community was killed from the outside and it was killed from the inside. Okay, I just gave you a little bit of the inside. Let me give you some of the outside, then we'll come back to the inside. The outside forces that killed the Kemetic community was the Black homosexual community. I'm gonna say it again. The outside, the external force that killed the Kemetic community.
Try not to use that word too much, because you know they got that thing down, locked down.
What word? Homosexual? Homosexual is not pejorative.
Yeah, but they got that in the algorithm, so I don't want them to shut me down.
No, if you use
I am literally pausing because they literally fuss back and forth about using a word, not using a word, why you can't use the word, etc. for like a minute. And it's just like, ugh, rip my skin off with a spork kind of a moment. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because I just, OMG, it's a lot. So applying to me, and again, this is my interpretation of what I'm listening to, applying Abrahamic ethos of one truth. So meaning, if you look at the different Abrahamic religions, they have like, this is the true way, this is the only way, this is the divine way. That essentially, or that concept is just, like I said, it's Abrahamic, or it's short-sighted, essentially. That's what I'm trying to get at, in that, you know, we have Ma'ati, we have the concept of Ma'ati, the double truth, the, you know, there's more than one side of the truth. You know, what's true to me, what's true to you, they're both right. You know, there is no one way. And this is what I'm trying to get at. So what is the purpose? What is the purpose of maintaining that the Kemetic community is just one of academics and nothing else? Because that's what it sounds like is being said. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I am not above correction. I'm a human being. So long as we're correcting with respect, I ain't got no problem. Because like, I watch to learn, I read to learn, I practice, I try to do, you know, a nice little mixture of both sides. So, but my commentary on that is the fact that an academic setting only is that conducive for sustainability. So like, let's be real here. Can a community exist purely just with education? And then when people, oh, well, what about school and you know, educational institutions exist? And I'm like, yeah, but also educational institutions go out of business for mismanagement. Educational, you know, institutions can create and promote propaganda. Like, you know, just like right now, everybody, oh, schools, and they don't teach us anything, and they don't teach you about everyday life and blah, blah, blah. That's everyone's bone of contention right now. So to now say, well, the Kemetic community, we want to model it of academics only is, you know, for sustainability, for long term, I would highly, highly question if we're going to see our great-grandchildren with the legacy, if we just base it on education alone. Because then what is it, a club? You know, is it that can't be it. So everyone should be literate, absolutely. If you are a person and you consider yourself to be Kemetic, you should learn Ronnie Kemet. You should learn Seshmeru Necher. You should be able to read those glyphs. If you can't read those glyphs, even basic stuff, if you don't know more than Ma'at and Hetep, you ain't doing it right. You have to be literate. And literacy doesn't just mean reading. Literacy means knowing about and being well versed in whatever area. So if it's English literacy, if it's math literacy, science literacy, Kemetic literacy, you need to be literate. Even, and again, this is a modern application, because back then, most of the people were illiterate. Most of the community was illiterate. So to say we can only be academic, you're leaving out a lot of people, because a lot of people aren't academics and scholars. Let's keep it all the way real and live. It's just not what it is. Everyone has their own talent. Everyone has their thing. Everyone has their strong point. So to say it can only be academic is not sustainable. It's just not. Everyone should be literate, like I said, but communities share. Communities share attributes, they share interests, they share goals. So then my question is, what is the goal of the Kemetic community? What is it that we're sharing? What attitudes, what interests, what are we doing as a group? What are we doing? Like, that's what I'm getting out of, or at least that's my reaction to this, because I think it poses a very good question that we're not scholarly enough, but we shouldn't only be that way at the same time. So communities are sustained by social institutions. Social institutions are education, religion, government or state, economy, and families. Every successful civilization has those institutions in place. So again, education is one of them. It is not the only one. So if we are looking to build a true community, we need to be worried about education. We need to address religion. We need to address governance, rules, laws. Yes, I know people hate it because we're in that level 3 of rebellion. The condition in the West has made it so that we are so uncomfortable with the condition that we've been placed in. We are in a state of rebellion. But out of that rebellion, where are we going? So that is my main question with that. So I said government and state. So what rules are, we can't be so in our ego that we are above the rules and can't nobody tell me what to do. That's American individualism. That's an American concept. No, that if you are someone who's saying you're Kemetic, if you're part of the Kemetic community, again, community, you have to consider the community, not just your own interests, not just what you want to do. That's not how communities work. That is why in at least the United States, if there are people watching in other countries, in your country too, this is why jails are created. This is why juvenile hall is created. This is why courts exist. This is like everything goes hand in hand. You cannot say Kemetic community and not have a full-blown community. That just, it's wild. And it has to be holistic. They have to play off of each other. You cannot have one stronger than the other. Otherwise, that's why civilizations collapse. Because one area becomes more, like that's what's wrong with the United States now. Economics and corporations and so on and so forth, and politics and governance has gone wacky, which now where education has gone wacky. Like nothing, like if one thing gear is off, the whole machine is off, like a timing belt in a car. They're all related. So you have to have your economy. We have to talk more about money. And he does get into that. And I'm sorry that I kind of jumped ahead. But he gets into that. We need to talk about money. We need to stop being so afraid to talk about money. Stop being so greedy. Stop being so money grubbing. Stop selling things for $20 that aren't worth $20. We're subscribing. And I'm saying we as in, because again, I know there are people who are watching this who are not Kemetic, don't identify as Kemetic. Maybe you're interested, but this particular piece right here is for people who consider themselves to be Kemetic. We cannot continue and expect ourselves to thrive, survive, and be sustainable by subscribing to and bringing in our traumas from the United States or whatever other country, colonialism, for people who might be down in South America or in Africa or over in Europe. Like we cannot bring the society we live in as far as the negative parts, the parts that don't jive. I'm like so old for saying that don't jive and meld in with what we're trying to rebuild, recreate, reconstruct. So we need to think about money. We need to stop being so crazy about money and only thinking about money. We need to think about all of these things holistically. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to give equal time to each area. Maybe some people are really, really good at money. Maybe some people are really good at governance. Maybe some people are really good at religion. Maybe some people are really good at scholarship. Some people are really good about, you know, families and things like that. But we need to attack it from many different angles, because again, that's why I said Ma'ati, there is no one way, there is no one truth, but we need to agree on what it is we're doing so that we can actually get there. Otherwise, we're just going to keep arguing with each other. And what's the point? What's the point? We already have so much turmoil and stuff going around. Why join a community that has and promotes turmoil? It's illogical and it's tiring. So education, religion, government / state, economy, and family. I think the last thing in family is, again, relationships. Relationships. We bring a lot of our Americanized, our Europeanized, our colonized mind into relationships. We bring a lot of 21st century bad habits of pettiness and I ain't gonna take that and I could get anybody I want to. We take too much of that and bring it into this, what's supposed to be new community of bettering ourselves. Just point blank period. Like that's what that is. All right. Okay, so I did have one question. So when he did mention Dr. Ben and Shakka Diop's quotes, I did write them down, and oh my gosh, those books are expensive. But no lie, if it is on Scribd, so if you ever want to get it, you can get a Scribd account free for 30 days, and I think $9.99, and there's a PDF version of that book. I'm looking to download it, and I have I'm building my own online library for people who want to be Kemetic practitioners or just consider themselves to be Kemetic. So it's kind of like, here is a body of work, or here are books that you should read. And again, I'm willing to take suggestions and so on and so forth. But anyway, so as he mentioned that, I had asked, so their understanding and perception as nationalists, and they're, you know, because again, nationalism and Pan-Africanism, these are social movements that grew out of the response of what was going on at that time period. So I'm wondering how much, when we think through nationalism and Pan-Africanism exclusively, because I have seen this, and I know this is going to be unpopular opinion. I know people are going to be like, oh my God, why would you say that? You're, you know, horrible blasphemer. But I am in no way, shape, or form saying that we shouldn't absorb the positive parts of that. Those ideologies, they're important because, again, like developing ourselves and things like that, we needed nationalism and Pan-Africanism to push us forward to want to change. But if we stay in that rebellious state, if we stay in the everybody else is wrong and we're right, if we stay in that space of religion is bad because of what we see Abrahamic religions did or what other religions did, and oh, religion is the root for everybody kills over religion, it's so bad, it's corrupt, it's this, it's that, like, that's short-sighted, because religion has done good. Look at the Haitian Revolution. Look at most of the social movements for civil rights have been through churches. Look at, you know, charities and things like that. They have been conducted through religious vehicles. So that doesn't mean you, just because you say I'm religious, or I, you know, because there's this big push of, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Religion is a European construction, which, you know, that's debatable, and that's a conversation for another day. But it's this idea of we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We are fixing and putting ourselves to be manipulated. And in the 21st century, when we know there are foreign countries that specifically go and hire people in poverty, they give them an opportunity to make money, and they specifically create accounts to stir up trouble in other countries, and this has been documented. It's very short-sighted of us to only look at it through one lens, through what this is the one way it can be done. This is the truth. This is it. You know, this is the critique that people have been given to Martin Luther King Jr. Oh, like they integrated, and you know, it's that we've arrived moment. Like there is no we've arrived, because as soon as you arrive, the game changes again. And now you have to recalibrate, because that's human nature. Once we attain, then we get, okay, I'm here. And we want something else. That's how humans work. So I just wanted to ask or put that out there, because I really, really, really feel very passionately and very strongly about being a member of the Kemetic community, practicing, learning, all of that other stuff that has to do with Kemeticism. So I just don't want to see us COINTELPRO'd. You know, like it can happen, and I just don't want that to happen. So Brother Shakka goes on to talk about the anti-heterosexual liberal agenda, and how it's corrupting the Kemetic community. In my notes here, I was like, that's a red herring fallacy. So a red herring, again, it's like it's a mix, but it's pointing at something that may or may not necessarily actually be true. All different groups have agendas. And that I think that's the long and short of what I'm going to say about that. But how can I say? My thought on that is that if there is indeed an agenda, and we understand that there is an agenda, and granted, I'm not necessarily saying that this specifically, you know, because he did say, what did he say? The feminist agenda and stuff and something. So he named more than just that. But so that's why I say the liberal agenda, so it encompasses all of that. But I think subscribing to that red herring, or like the, ooh, they're out to get us kind of a thing, is dangerous, in that it makes it easy for us to be manipulated as a community. I think it's very, very dangerous. And then on top of that, if we are trying to build and create and restore and resurrect a Kemetic community, we need to be aware of the world that we're in. We need to be aware of potential agendas or not agendas or whatever. But, and I'm gonna say this a couple of times throughout, but sheesh, we really, 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 really just need to be careful of being manipulated by outsiders, and that's what I see here. And I know it was well intentioned originally when you know, people saying Hetep, 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 and you know, and he does have a point. It was outsiders that coined that phrase, Hotep N-word, or you know, like that was an outsider's thing. No person who calls themselves Kemetic called themselves that. That's like, no. The reason why it came up is because, again, because of the disorganization, because people were so busy being woke, but they weren't really awake. They saw a video once, they heard a lecture over here, they may have read a book or two, and they saw a bunch of social media posts and then decided this is it. That's not scholarship. That's very irresponsible. But because we're not one homogenous group, it was easy to manipulate that narrative. Like that was the moment where we, as a Kemetic community, should have came forward and said, that is wrong. This is what it, this right here, this is what it means to be Kemetic. Not, and I'm like, I know I'm going to catch some heck for saying this, and I say it respectfully because I do respect the originator, but changing how we greet ourselves based on what outsiders say, where and how are we being unapologetic by bending like that? I think that if we are who we say we are as Kemetic people, if we say this is what we're about, and yes, I get it that we don't want to be associated, but again, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but if the oil, I mean, if it keeps squeaking long enough, replace it. Why didn't we replace it? Not replace the word, but replace the narrative. PR, we needed better PR. We needed more voices. We needed more. But so many people didn't want to get involved. Nobody wants to get involved with a shouting match. Nobody wants to get involved in trying to tell people, yo, you got to step your cookies up, and then get cussed out by people who you know don't really even know. By people who are taking your legacy and pimping it. Nobody wanted to get involved in that fight because it's arduous and pointless. It's extra stress and worry over people who don't want to understand anyway. They didn't want to understand. They didn't care. It was something for them to make money, to get clicks, to get, oh, you heard about that? Like, it was part of a media cycle. That was it, because you don't even really hear about it now that much anymore. You really don't. But we, as a community, we bended for a media cycle. And that's quite unfortunate. Beauty of it, we got new ways of greeting each other. But we need to be better at being together and stronger together. So that's what I get out of the argument that he's making there. So I'm going to fast forward to an hour and 20 minutes so that I can, we can pick up, because I believe I've talked enough for a little bit. All of that I just skipped was them arguing the, the back and forth about the, labels and what labels you can and cannot use on YouTube and channels.
I can still say heterosexual. Ancient Egypt was very pro-heterosexual. And because they were pro-heterosexual, that community heterosexual. And because they were pro-heterosexual, that community decided that there was no place for them in the Kemetic community. And if there was no place for them in the Kemetic community, then they were going to destroy the Kemetic community. They were going to destroy any social gains that the Kemetic community had made. They were going to basically destroy our name in good standing, right? By caricaturizing and lampooning the only Kemetic word that they know. They only know the word Hotep because they hear us say it all the time. And so they decided to latch onto that word as if it became a badge for the entire community. And because ancient Egypt was, are you ready, sir? They were pro-heterosexual. Because ancient Egypt was pro-heterosexual, they decided that there was no place for them in that kind of movement. And so based on the fact that there was no place for them in that kind of movement, they decided that the Kemetic community was the enemy. And that therefore the Kemetic community has to go. And so the whole culture was ridiculed through sensitive spots in media, well-placed spots in media that these people control and that they have access to. And no one is talking about it. I'm going to talk about it at greater length in my Friday Night Build and on my channel. I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to talk about it because I don't believe that you can solve a problem by sticking your head in the sand. You understand what I'm saying? I don't believe that. So that was the external attack that the Kemetic community suffered and from which we have yet to recover. Okay? And I know this because I've gone into Facebook groups and I've done battle with whole groups who have tried to argue me down about who the Kemetic community is and what they stand for. And I always had to make it very clear. Let's stop playing games. Let's talk about what this is really all about so that we can move forward together. And as I said, that's what it was all about. It was all about.
Yes. All I can say is yes. Let's be clear what the goals are, what it is we want, or where we're going, what our body of knowledge is, what qualifies people to be leaders, not leaders, etc. Yes, 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 yes. All of that, yes. 2 thumbs up. Yes.
The fact that ancient Kemet was very pro-heterosexual. It's all in their documentation. It's in the Book of the Dead. It's in the Papyrus of Nu. It's in commentaries on ancient Egypt. If you read Black Athena by Martin Bernal, he talks about it. Somebody should have told Martin Bernal he wasn't supposed to use that word in his book. But the point that I'm making is simply this, and I think it's absolutely insane. The point that I'm making is this. That's what killed the Kemetic community from the outside. It was that marketing campaign. People don't realize how powerful marketing is, right? Marketing will fuck you up, and you don't even know you got fucked up. That's the Kemetic community right now. They're fucked up, and they don't even know it, okay? But that's the power of marketing. The alphabet people or the rainbow people. I'm not going to call them the alphabet people because they didn't create it. We created the alphabet. I'm not going to call them the rainbow people because I love the rainbow. I'm a rainbow person. Every time I see the rainbow, I celebrate. I think it's beautiful. I'm not going to let them co-opt shit. You understand what I'm saying? My mind is not that weak. You understand? That's some weak shit. I am not, I am not fucking with that. With all due respect. You know, I'm not fucking with that. I'm speaking the truth. And so, but I'm also going to look out for my brother to the best of my ability. And so that said, I'm moving forward. I've already told you who the external element was that hit the Kemetic community hard. The inner, now they're not the real problem. The real problem is who killed the Kemetic community from the inside out. The people who killed the Kemetic community from the inside out are people who many people identify as the Kemetic community, or with the Kemetic community, or again as the Kemetic community. These people.
Woo! Speak it. Now, granted, he and I differ on, you know, some of the people, but the truth is the truth. There are a lot of people who co-opted and just saw it as a come up, or like I said previously, you know, from back in the day, and they've committed themselves to, I created this. I have my good intentions. Nobody likes to be told they're wrong. Nobody likes to be told that they made mistakes, especially if they have a larger following. So I get it, but at the end of the day, now it's 2021. If there were mistakes made, or if there are things that are hindering us, we need to address it now.
People are people that I call New Ageists. All right? There's something called New Ageism. It's been around for a long time, right? It's almost like apocalyptic Judaism. In apocalyptic Judaism, they have a tradition in the history of walking around always talking about, oh, the world's coming to an end. It's about to end. And you find a lot of that in the Bible. But in New Ageism, it's the opposite. A new age is upon us. So we must begin to meditate on it. We have to know where the stars are aligned and what sign is going this way and what sign is going that way. And we have to meditate and we have to do yoga and all this other bullshit. Okay? That's the New Age community. Okay? And what I'm here to tell you is that the New Age community hijacked the Kemetic community. They put on white clothing. They put on leopard skin priest sashes so they could look like Kemetic high priests. They all call themselves Kemetic high priests. And they're all full of shit. All of them. Down to the last.
All right. So it was like, yes, yes. Wait a minute. Hold on. So absolutely. Absolutely. Like it is the, like, let me tell y'all, like my mother is Christian. So I went to church with her one time because she asked me to go, and that's my mom, and you know, I'm gonna go, fine. So we went to this, and it's a very, very famous church over in New York. And I saw one of the ministers there, and you know, I mean, I couldn't help myself. You know how you just see something you're like, you can't resist? Yeah, I couldn't resist. Their preacher, their minister, had an Ankh ring on and an Ankh earring in. And I just had to approach him, and I was like, oh, what's that? That's not a cross. Like, oh, like, you know, I was playing dumb there. So he goes, oh yes, it's from ancient Egypt, and it means life. Like, I mean, you would have thought he just won the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, you know, like he was just so proud. And anybody can make an Ankh. Anybody can wear an Ankh. You got people online on Etsy and people who just like, because I know, and I'm like, I know this is going to be a little controversial, but I'm not going to, you know, really say, actually what I have to say isn't controversial. I mean, the people's responses might be controversial. But Baba Haru makes Ankhs for people. And generally speaking, the people who receive Ankhs or are allowed, if you will, are people who have been in service of the Kemetic community. That's supposed to be who earns and gets those. And I have seen, and he said many times, like, you cannot just pay me to get one. If you want me to make like a miniature one and it's a necklace or like a piece of jewelry, that's fine, but you're not going to get the actual Ankh that, you know, people carry. So you have people making them out of copper, people who aren't even Kemetic, people who are just, you know, worksmiths, like they know they know metallurgy, and they create them for people who, you know, they're self-proclaimed, they're not verified, they don't have a little blue check mark, or, you know. And again, it's not that you, how can I say, it's not that one cannot educate themselves, but when it comes to being a community, part of that structure, as much as we don't like it, the social structure is that there are people who are qualified. Like, there is a book that I am reading now, and it literally said that you had to not only be qualified to be able to speak the Hekau, but you had to be a qualified person who knew how to speak the Hekau. It was double. You couldn't just know how to say it. You had to be a person of caliber. You had to be, you know, pure. And again, that doesn't even mean like, oh, I'm just bathing or whatever. Like, your mind had to be pure. Your heart had to be pure. You had to, you know, do your fasting. And again, these are priests. This was a priest level thing. So to do this, you had to be qualified. But these days, the lack of us being all together, anybody can do anything and hire somebody to make it for them. Just like, you know, my mom's biggest thing, again, like I said, she was a Christian, and her biggest thing when I was younger and I was really like, oh my God, I love hip hop and blah, 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 she was just like, why are they all wearing crucifixes and they're all wearing the cross, but then say all that stuff about women and killing people and this, that, and the third? They're not Christians. And at the time, I'm like, okay, old lady. But now I'm becoming more and more of an old lady, and I get it. I get it, because it's, why are you wearing the symbols and dressing in the garb if you really ain't about that life? You're not. Like, and these people, they put on robes and are charlatans, don't even know what they're talking about, can't read, can't write. And I'm not even talking about Seshmedu Necher, because me personally, I'm still learning. And language to me is very difficult. Like, I find it very challenging. And like, I will take an algebra class over a language class anytime. I have literally learned at least 5 languages in my lifetime, and it didn't stick. It's challenging. So I get it, but I'm still plugging along. I'm still trying. Whereas there are other people who don't even try, but then say, you know, oh, I can do this, I can do that, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's coming from a place of ego. And I think the one thing that as the Kemetic community we can do is say, these are the features of a charlatan. You know a charlatan when blah, 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 blah. Now, granted, we also need to agree what is, for lack of a better word to say, canon, acceptable in our culture, and what's not. So we can differentiate between the two. So clearly, and I'm gonna like move a little more forward. So there are a lot of people who will say like, oh, you know, again, I'm not about the personal attacks or anything like that. I just want to have the discourse. I just want to exchange ideas. And at the end of the day, if a person's calling them Kemetic, I want it to be reflective of, yeah, that person's Kemetic because I represent you, you represent me. Again, community. I just need people who say that they're they're part of this community to be better. I need me to be better. I need everybody to just be better. So again, that's like the whole purpose of this video. So the whole idea of saying, oh, they're deluded, they're a cult, they're all full of and stuff like that. Like, again, now we're back to the ad hominems. Now we're back to the red herrings. Now we're back to the straw man. We're attacking things that we're being so overly general that it's, you know, for onlookers and people who don't know and aren't part of the community or never been to a temple, never been to a shrine, never been to the National Black Theater, never been to these different venues, information that they have absolutely no context. And that is also one of the fallacies. We know that the Kemetic community, generally speaking, New York, New Jersey, there's out in Ohio, we got down in Atlanta, we have pockets. So everybody else, like if you're from Wyoming watching this video, if you're from South Africa, if you're from Brazil, if you are from another country, what you see on these screens is all you know about the Kemetic community, and you don't have any context whatsoever about other people because you're an island unto yourself, or you're an onlooker, a voyeur. You're a person who is here to, like, how many people have I seen? Because I have my own group on Facebook, and it's a closed group because some of the groups, I mean, literally all people want to do is fight with each other and argue with each other and intellectually masturbate and just, it's all about their ego. They wake up one day, they're not happy with their life, so I'm going to go beat up on somebody on the internet. Like, that happens so much, and that is not Kemetic. That is not what this is about. We still need to be much more clear about what we are about and our goals and such and such and such, but I know it ain't that. So, when he's saying deluded and full of poop or feces, that's a hasty generalization. Respectfully, some people he's describing, yeah, they're full of poop. They're drenched in poop. They live in the poop. They're like, yes, poop. Give me your money, though, because I know this much more than you do. Yeah, those people, agreed. Absolutely. Kick them out. Kick them to the curb. Call Tyrone. Come get your stuff. But that isn't everyone. So many of the critiques that, again, on the Kemetic community come from people who, again, watch a YouTube, read a book, but they're not actually part of a community. They're an island. So it's, if you don't have the context, it's really, really difficult to actually have a full understanding other than what you're being told. And again, this is the problem that people have with, conventional education in the school system, because people are just going off of what you're told. Come on, we need to be critical. And not so critical because we want to be a troublemaker or because we're being rebellious. We have to know ourselves and know where we're at to say, like, I literally said this to a student the other day, like, are you just having a bad day and you want some excitement? Or do you truly want to know? And what is your motivation? Why are you doing this? Why are you listening to this, following this? Why are you even listening to me right now? What is the function of it? So, so a scholar, there's a lot of, and then after I kind of do this next little bit, I'm going to let him go back to speaking. A scholar. To be called a scholar, by definition, a scholar is a specialist who is highly educated, a person who has done advanced study. Hands down, Brother Shakka he has done a lot of stuff. He's read things I've never read. He's older than me. He knows, he has read, he's learned. I respect that very much. Again, but this is a lay audience. An audience who, again, I use the word ignorant, not in a demeaning way, but in the literal definition of you really don't know, or you have an idea, but you're not really 100%. If we was to have a conversation in live time right now, and, you know, with certain pointed questions, you know, it wouldn't be very, very clear. So that being said, a scholar conducts research. And I don't mean just reading books, because there is quantitative data and there is qualitative data. And we cannot sit here and act as though quantitative data, aka numbers, I read this many of books, I can regurgitate this amount of information, blah, blah, blah. Everyday life experience, the spirituality, the religiosity, again, we have all these different holistic linked areas to create a society playing off of each other. Taking that into account is important as we move forward. So as historians or scholars in general, there are certain rules, point blank period. Like, just because you read a book, there are certain rules to scholarship. It's always been that way. Now, granted, because of the society, it may look a little different. It may be expressed a little different, so on and so forth. But you can go through the historical method, or you can go through the scientific method. Meaning, and we've learned this in high school for those of us who you know, I think even in middle school at this point, maybe they teach it, the scientific method. This idea that if you have some sort of hypothesis, you need to test it. You need to test it. And if you don't have context and you don't have a community around you to test it, you know, then how will you truly, like, that's the whole point of these theories. You're supposed to test them, and you're supposed to be able to get the results over and over and over again. You're supposed to make the hypothesis, run it through some tests, and if what your result matches your hypothesis, cool, do it again. Does it match again? Cool, do it again. Does it match the hypothesis? Okay, cool. Now we can accept, yeah, this might be a thing. If it doesn't match, you're supposed to go back to the drawing board, create new questions, create new tests to find out what, you know, it is you're trying to find out. So many of the people either listening to this or in this particular audience and so on and so forth have not been to various temples, or they've only been to one temple, or they've only watched live streams, or they've only seen a brochure. They've never even been around. So how can one call themselves, and I'm not saying this about Brother Shakka, because he, you know, I'm gonna take him on his word to say he's, you know, been around all these different groups of people, so therefore that is where he's saying this. I don't personally know him, so I can't say yes, no, maybe so. I just have to take him on his word with that. But for people in the audience, that that's not scholarship. I can't think of any other way to say it. It's not scholarship to just listen to one group. The whole point, if in school you're supposed to learn, you need multiple sources from different perspectives, analyze all of them, run your tests until you get something that continues to, like, a, you know, a going theme, if you will. Then you can go with that. So I can understand the going theme because we've seen a lot of charlatans. But what about the other groups who are trying to be part of the Kemetic community and have been around for 20 years, who've been around 5, 10 years, who, you know, it's very alienating. And how can we have an actual community when we alienate each other? And then when we alienate each other, now we can be COINTELPRO'd and infiltrated and manipulated and so on and so forth. And then the community will die. Point blank period. That's what it is. There is a fallacy that's called tu quo qui, which essentially means you're pointing out hypocrisy. Now, clearly, and there were follow-up videos to this, which I will not even fully get into some of those responses. because OMG. But there's a lot of tit for tat. There's a lot of, well, you did this. Well, excuse me. It's a lot of personal attacks. What does that have to do with the issue at hand? What does it have to do with the state of the community? What does it have to do for resurrection? What does it have to do with anything? I don't care if you don't like each other. I don't care. Like, it's kind of like when we go to work, our boss doesn't care about our personal feelings. Our boss doesn't care that we had a bad night. Our boss doesn't care if our boss was sick. Our boss doesn't care if, you know, we didn't have enough money to pay the bills. They care about the job that needs to be done. The Kemetic community can no longer afford for people's personal beefs. They cannot afford this tu quo qui. It just, we don't have time for it anymore. The hour is now. It is too important. The work that needs to be done is too important to fuss and fight over personal beefs. The old-fashioned saying, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. Keep it to yourself. There are so many verses in the 42 that we could go through, which I am going to go through, about all the violations of Ma'at. When we do these things, when we subscribe to Americanized way of thinking, when we think of Western colonized ways of thinking, we're breaking the 42. And if you're a Kemetic person, that's a big no-no. So let me go ahead and let him speak.
Last one, they're all full of shit. None of them are Kemetic high priests. Not one. Okay? They'll come before you and they will tell you that they are Kemetic high priests. They are not a Kemetic high priest. They're not even a fucking priest. They are self-deluded, is what the fuck they are. Okay? And I'm telling you the truth. Okay? They are fucking deluded. And so it's strange and it's interesting because I've had some of their students approach me, actually come to my home and ask me questions about their teachers and their high priests and priestesses. And I tell them the truth. No, I do better. I show them the truth. And when I show it to them, they're like, wow. I'm like, yeah, but nobody wants to talk about it. Maybe for the same reason I can't say certain words on here. It's how people move and operate. I don't move and operate that way. Okay? So that's strange to me. That's what I call people behaving strangely. And I don't behave strangely. Okay? So basically, so what I'm telling you is that, and I got to name some names so people can begin to understand what I'm talking about. Or better yet, let me stick to the what's. How many people in the chat have ever heard of Kemetic yoga? Right? Put a 1 in the chat room if you ever heard of Kemetic yoga. Put a 1 in the chat. Let me see. I'm looking at it. Put a 1 in the chat. I see they loving the video. Right? Put a 1 in the chat room if you ever heard of Kemetic yoga. I'm not going to move on until I see the ones. Okay, I see a few ones. Okay, cool. Now, I can guarantee you that most of those ones are probably coming from females watching this. Okay? Now, okay, cool. That's all I needed to see. All right? If you look at images of studios of people doing Kemetic yoga, 90% of them are black women, black females. Why? Because I have to say something. Number one, I love black females. I hold them up. They are goddesses in my life, but I have to be honest about them. What you have to remember about a black female, this is very important. The best way to manipulate a black female is to convince her. That's it. Once they're convinced, you don't have to do your job. They will do the rest of the job for you. And that's not really a good thing because you can never underestimate the power of someone else to convince someone of something. Not only that, you can never underestimate a person's power to convince themselves of something that may be emphatically wrong. And so, unfortunately, because black females operate on this convincing principle, they've been convinced about A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You get a lot of unfortunate, what I call fallout, and it's just the truth of the matter. And so, hopefully, we can work on that as a community to make our sisters more aware of what they're doing, so that they're not so vulnerable, right? Just because they're convinced about something, always leave a little bit of room for doubt. Okay, so why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the reason a lot of these fake Kemetic organizations are propped up is because black women flock to them. They flock to them. Now, I'm talking about Kemetic yoga number one. Number one, put Kemetic yoga up there, number one. Okay? I'm not going to tell you that there's no such thing as Kemetic yoga. I think it would be wrong to do that. I think that Issa Rahotep, the brother who created it, I think that he gave the black community a good thing, in my opinion. Okay? Let me make sure I'm saying the brother's name correct. Just want to make sure I'm saying his name correct. Yes, Issa Rahotep. Okay. Oops. Okay. Where we at? I want to get back to South Dinner. So, what happened, Sal? Why you shaking your head now?
Yeah, I heard that, man. Yo, I heard that.
You heard what?
What you had? That soundbite that just came on.
Oh no, that's Hotep Jesus. He sent me a video he wants me to watch later, so I just have it queued up. So when this is over, I can watch it. And so the point I'm making is that you have people like Issa Rahotep and his partner who created Kemetic yoga. And I think that Kemetic yoga is a beautiful thing. I would take it myself. In fact, I plan on taking Kemetic yoga. However, the premise upon which they base Kemetic yoga is false and it's fake. It's false and it's fake. Okay? Why is this important? This is important because of legacy and because of transmission. You don't build a community like the Kemetic community without putting plans in place to pass it on to the next generation. You cannot pass on the Kemetic community to the next generation talking about some fucking Kemetic yoga. You understand what I'm telling you? You cannot do that. You cannot pass on the Kemetic community You can't pass this legacy of the Kemetic community to the next generation talking about meditation, because that's what these pseudo Kemetic communities are all about. If you look on their flyers, in my PowerPoint I'm going to be giving on my channel, right? If you look on my flyers, the PowerPoint I'm going to be giving at the Friday night build is going to be insane. Everything I'm talking about, I'm going to be showing you. Faces, names, movements, everything. I'm going to be showing you. Okay? What I'm saying to you is that that's what killed the Kemetic community. It took on a personality that was not Kemetic. All that shit about Kemetic yoga, all that shit about meditating, all that shit comes out of Hinduism, and it comes out of Asia. You understand what I'm telling you? They want to tell you that the Hindus and Indians got it from Africa. That's some bullshit. Some bullshit. Okay? What they did was they took certain iconography in ancient Egypt and they tried to make it commensurate with the iconography within Buddhism, Hinduism, and Brahmanism, which comes out of Hinduism, all right? And yoga, which is an exercise. So, and also there's a meditative aspect to it as well. So what they did was they tried to make Indian culture commensurate with Kemetic culture. You don't do that. That's foul. And it's wrong. And it's historically, what's the word that I'm looking for? Inept. Historically invalid. Okay? Indian culture was not the same as Kemetic culture. Were the first Indians black? Without a doubt. No argument there. Were the ancient Egyptians black? The first ones? Without a doubt. No argument there. But don't tell me that because they were black, that what they were doing was the exact same thing, because that's some bullshit. Okay? That's some bullshit. And then what they do is they show you all these different iconography of the Neteru and of the scribes sitting in certain positions, laying in certain positions, or lying in certain positions. And then they tell you, look, see, that's yoga. See it there on the walls? That's yoga. And that's some bullshit. It's not yoga. It's a fucking lie. Okay? And these people have built industries off of this shit. Real industries. The Kemetic yoga community now has a contractual relationship with the tourist industry of Egypt. So you got black people going to sit in Giza to do yoga around the pyramids. You got black people going to Africa, going to Egypt to do Indian exercises in front of the pyramids and in front of the African monuments. These people are fucking lost. You understand?
Okay, so the one part I have to say, besides how much I agree with everything he just said, legit, I see out of the people on YouTube, there's only one person who does it the closest to the gentleman who created Kemetic yoga. Outside of that, I have seen like people do routines, but they keep calling like the Hindu names, like I could see and understand inspiration, wanting to take inspiration, you know, because again, Kemeticism in the 21st century, we're not going to be just like back in the day. We have to take and create space for, you know, moving forward and ingenuity and so on and so forth. So so for it being inspired or something like that, okay, using your own creativity, okay, but the tools are not to be worshipped. And that is absolutely hands down what he's talking about. I have seen YouTubes where it says Kemetic yoga, and then in the Kemetic yoga, and they're sitting there chanting in Hindu. And it's like, what? Like wild. But again, the person who doesn't know any better, they're, oh, this is something that's good for me. It's popular. I've heard of it, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, that is absolutely hands down a problem, a huge problem.
See what I'm telling you? They're fucking lost. They are what I call Asianist. Okay? They are what you call what do you call that? They are Asian philias. That's what they are. They're Asian philiacs. Okay? They are in love with things Asian. The music, the ethos, the aesthetics, the culture. But what they do is they take it from the Asian and then they wrap it up in Kemetic garbage. And they say, see here, look, this is Kemetic. Wasn't nobody in ancient Kemetic doing no fucking yoga. Nobody. They didn't have time to do fucking yoga. They were too busy doing business and making money. You understand? That's what they were doing. They were regulating an economy in ancient Egypt. Well, nobody sitting around doing no fucking yoga. Least of all the king. And if you were a scribe, you worked for the king. So you didn't have time to sit around and do no fucking yoga. So when I look at the Kemetic community and what killed it from the inside, that's what killed it from the inside. And I'm naming groups, right? And individuals. I already named Isur Ra-Hotep, who is the Grand Poobah of Kemetic yoga. And I'm naming now the Assault Asset Society with Shakka. They're full of shit too. Bunch of Asianists. There's nothing Kemetic about that organization. They're Asianists. You hear what I'm telling you? They are Asianists. All right? Assault on Set Society is Asianist. There's nothing Kemetic about that organization. Okay? I'm telling you this. And I would debate any one of them, from Shakka on down. I would debate any one of them. Okay? There's nothing Kemetic about their organization at all. Who else? The Nuwaubians. The Nuwaubian organization. They're no different. They just do it with a twist. They take Hindu culture and they claim it, and then they talk shit about the Hindus. Call them fallen angels and the children of the devil and all this other shit. But they take the Hindu culture for themselves. That's why they wear the bindi dot in the Nuwaubian nation. They wear the bindi dot, the females. That's Hindu. It's Indian. Does not come from Africa. Okay? And the rest of the clothing that Dr. York's son tried to say was African. He had on a jacket. I forgot what it's called, a Nehru jacket, I think. And well, that's what we call it. And he tried to say it was African. We call it Hindu, but he said it's actually African. I say bullshit until you can prove it. Prove it. Don't tell me it's African. Show me it's African. Let's put it in a date time sequence. And if that adds up, then it's African. But until then, it's Indian and it's Hindu. Okay? So I've already said the Assault Society is not Kemetic. They hijacked the Kemetic community. Shakka, he hijacked the Kemetic community and gave them some Asian bullshit dressed in Kemetic clothing. And they think they got something that's ancient Kemet. And it's disgusting. Okay? The same is true for I hate to bring up certain family members, but you got to be fair across the board. You can't call out some and don't call out all. Right? So these Kemetic people with their temples or the shrines. This is the shrine of this. This is the shrine of that. The temple of this, the temple of that. They're out there, they know who they are. I'm not going to name names yet, but I'm going to name names. There's no question about it. I might even name them on this platform just to get this shit popping. Okay? And just because I name these people does not mean that I don't love them. It does not mean that I don't respect them as people. I do respect them as people. I do love them as people. In fact, it's hard for me to walk this road because when I look at these people, I consider them my people. Right? When I look at the shrine of Ma'at, when I look at the temple of Anu, when I look at Queen of Fu and her community, when I look at these people, I see them as being my people because we all proclaim Kemet. But here's the difference. The difference is that all of these people proclaiming Kemet, they don't know Kemet. You can tell just by listening to them talk, listening to their teachings. Watch how they behave. They behave more like they're in a fucking cult, like they're zombied out, like they can't speak freely and act normally around other people. You understand what I'm saying? I'm telling you some real shit, bro. This is what killed the Kemetic community. Now, maybe I'm the only one that cares, and that's fine. I'll be the only one that cares. But I do know that out there, there's got to be a contingency, sizable amount of black people who really want that real Kemetic shit. That they want that real stuff. Like Shakka, what are Kemetic really about? Why?
Now, this is the part that I know when people watched it, they were like, oh, he out here causing trouble and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I understand what he's saying. I totally understand what he's saying. And again, let me go back. So one, the conversation at this juncture, in my opinion, is something that is a family conversation, meaning the people who he's saying, like, I believe that we're family and stuff like that, and that we're one in, I don't want to say one in the same, but we're on similar paths, and we all want the same goal, and so on and so forth. I definitely think that this piece right here, and this is why I'm like trying to be careful in how I word this, because you know how there are families that say it all the time. We don't talk family business. Like we talk in the house. We're not going to talk in the street. Da 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 da. This YouTube is a public platform. It is the street, if you will. It is not for outsiders, troublemakers, and things like that to be on the inside of that particular conversation. That being said, I also think that, you know, and I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it's like a cult, it's like a cult, it's like a cult. And, well, one, you know, when you say a cult, what exactly are you meaning? Like that it's exclusive, that we kind of stay to ourselves? Like what features are you trying to say it's like? Because, you know, it's very, very loaded, and it leads a lot to assumption, which is dangerous in general, especially when speaking amongst people who are not family. So I understand why members of the various temple shrines of, I don't know what you would call Sacred Woman as far as a group, a movement. I don't know quite what you would call that, but or how you would label them rather. But that is something where the different temples and things like conversations needs to be had. He is right about that. But these conversations do not need to be held in public forum for all to see. Then, maybe once consensus and things like that occur, then okay, we'll come out to the public, this, that, and the third. But it is not, I know we live in the 21st century and everybody likes to let it all hang out. Sometimes letting it all hang out isn't positive. So I think that's what he's talking about right now. That's how I agree and disagree at the same time. The other piece, I had a notes. That's it. So most of the Kemetic temples, now outside of Asar Aset, which, he said wasn't part of this group that he mentioned, as he considers as family and have respect for and all this other stuff. Outside of Asar Aset started, I wrote down, so Asar Aset started in 1973. Outside of that, maybe Muwada Ashby's organization, which they're very kind of unto themselves, and they're out of Florida. So maybe geographically, regionally, that's why I've never really met anyone from their group. So I really don't know what they do. And when it comes to Asar Aset, OMG, it is really difficult to find them. They kind of do their own thing and stay over there. So they don't really interact that much. And you kind of got to be in the know to be invited to their stuff. So that's that. So outside of those two groups that I can think of off the top of my head, the temples and the shrines and stuff like that that exist now are 20 years old, if that, or younger. Literally. Think about human life. Think about the bozo, silly, destructive, dumb things you did in, as a teenager, as a child, as a 20-year-old. I would even venture to say sometimes as a 30-year-old, as a 40-year-old, as a 50-year-old, respectfully. Human nature, it takes us a long time to get ourselves together. It is a process. So this is the context that I have for this specific critique that he has, because again, it's not even that I disagree. Generally speaking, I agree with what he is getting at, but I think it's dreadfully unfair. And again, because of the ignorance of the general audience, I think it's very, very unfair to say as though these groups have to have it together. If we were to look at, like, let's say, that's what I was going to say. This is a Reconstructionist movement. There is no handbook. There are many documents. There are many, but you got to learn a whole language to understand those documents. Language, if I'm not mistaken, oh my gosh, I know this. I can't remember the exact statistic off the top of my head, but language takes, if I'm not mistaken, I think they said something like 17 years to somewhat master. And this is if it's your second language. This is why throughout your whole grade school, middle school, high school experience, you constantly have to take English classes or English literature. You constantly have to do it because language is very, very complex. Excuse me. Then on top of that, you have to learn the language. You know what I mean? Like, we all go to school and we graduate, or some don't. Some people get a GED or whatever. Like, and still don't know everything after 12 years. Then people go on to college. Then people get masters and PhDs and this, that, and they still don't know everything. Like, so it's very, very unfair to critique the current, like, specifically Temple of Anu, Shrine of Ma'at, because those are the ones he's talking about. again, I'm not sure what label to use for Sacred Woman, but Sacred Woman came about in 2000. So technically, between that, Temple of Anu, and then Shrine is the youngest. If we want to throw in their New Osset Temple out in Ohio, if we want to throw in the Shrine of, I'm sorry, not Shrine, I apologize. The, oh my gosh, why can't I think? I'm thinking of a holiday and not the name of, oh my God. The, down south, oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, Mukajara. I know. I'm like, all I know is Sekhmet. And I want to say the Shrine of Sekhmet, and I know that's not right. I know it'll come to me, but it's not coming to me right now. I apologize vehemently. I apologize because I'm having such a brain moment. But so if we're gonna say these different, or even Mfundishi's temple, you know, or if we want to say Shrine of Ptah and kind of try to bring them back a little bit, you know, all these different groups are not that old. They're really not. And this is like, we have to literally learn the language, get rid of what we all grew up knowing, and then learn this new way of doing it. It's not something that's gonna, it's not snappy. It's not gonna happen like that. That's not how groups, societies, and things like that work. It's just not. It's very, very unfair to even insinuate that these groups need to have it together. And, you know, they're in the process of growing. They're in the, you know, and when you're growing, you make mistakes. You have, you know what I mean? But again, you learn because you have conversations. You learn, you know, because of that dialogue and discourse. So just to further emphasize this point. So the Reconstructionist movement, it's a Jewish Reconstructionist movement. It started in 1920, and they only got accepted by their own people in 1990. And they're still considered to be a fringe type of a group. If we were to look at the history of Christianity, it took hundreds of years and fighting and this, that, and the third to establish Christianity. It took hundreds of years to establish Islam, and after fighting and all this, that, and the third. If we want to take it out of the scope of religiosity, look at the continent of Africa right now. The continent of Africa only got rid of colonialism, and I would even argue it's still not fully rid of it, less than 60 years ago. Less than 60 years ago. So of course, you know, and then you have coups, you have infiltrating, you have all these other things that are constantly disrupting the progress, and that's 60 years. And you know what I mean? Like, they have systems, but it's not right. It's not working with fluidity. So it's the same thing. You know, we can even if we look at Haiti, if we look at Haiti, if we look at Jamaica, well, not Jamaica. Jamaica is still, I believe, a commonwealth. But even after independence and creating one's own thing, human beings, it takes generations for, you know, if we wanted to talk about the United States, we're still technically fighting over federalism versus anti-federalism. Government, big governments, less governance. We're still fighting that to this day, hundreds of years later. So to say a couple of shrines that are less than, or shrines and temples that are less than 20 years and less years old, and they should have it together and they shouldn't make any mistakes and be like, it's dreadfully, dreadfully dangerous to even approach that like that. It's yeah, no, that's very unfortunate.
Why should we study ancient Egypt? Why is it relevant right now? Because Sanetta, you know what the new religion is? The new religion, what? The new religion is entrepreneurship. You understand? That's the new religion. The new religion is entrepreneurship. Ain't nobody gonna talk about that because ain't nobody gonna even phrase it that way. They don't phrase it that way because they live in a fantasy world. They live in a virtual reality world. But in the real world, the new religion is entrepreneurship. Now, with all due respect, I have no problem with that. I don't have any problem with that. But you cannot take these forms of Kemeticism Most of them should probably call it Kemetic mysticism. Okay? So, but the point that I'm making is this. Let me explain something to all of you, just so I can say this unequivocally. I am coming at the entire Kemetic community, and I'm naming everybody from Baba Heru, who I love and respect, to Jabari and his team, his shrine and temple, to Queen Afua and her temple thing that they got going on. I'm coming at everybody who's been holding up Kemet as an emblem and using it and exploiting it and fucking for business reasons. I'm coming at all of them, not with hate. I'm just passionate right now, but I'm coming at all of them because they've done a disservice to the black community, from my opinion and from my perspective. Most of them did the best. Most of them did. And shout out to my brother, Queen Afua's son, whose name escapes me at the moment right now, only because he don't call nobody. Supernova Sloan, right? My brother, I remember it off the top of my head, right? Shout out to my brother, whom I have love and respect for. But I got to call out everybody because this has gone on too long. You cannot resurrect the Kemetic community simply by holding all of these bullshit rituals and collecting money for fucking retreats and trips to Egypt and all this other bullshit where the people who took you to Egypt come back just worse off than the people that they took. And I'm telling you the truth. I ain't telling you the truth. This has nothing to do with competition or anything of that nature. I'm telling you the truth because when I show you the truth, all of you are going to be fucked up. You're going to be fucked up and say, well, goddamn, the point I'm making is that you got a lot of fakers and fools out here fronting off as if they Kemetic and they're not Kemetic. Okay? They got their temples, they got their shrines, they got their fucking retreats, they got their yoga classes, they got their meditation classes, and none of this, their oracle classes, none of this shit has anything to do with ancient Kemet. Period. Period. If you want.
That is so loaded. It's very, very general. And again, to the onlooker who has no context, no experience, or anything like that, that's very inflammatory and damning. And are there some groups who are doing what he's talking about? Yeah. Let's keep it all the way real. Yeah. That exists. It's a thing. But does that also mean to throw the baby out with the bathwater, kind of like, oh, well, you look like you're doing something like that person is doing, so you're crap too? Not really. If, again, this part is the family conversation because, again, at the time period, people did what they believed to be right. People did what they believed the community needed. People, people changed after time, and some people, they started out one way and turned into do something else that maybe not be that positive. So, but again, this to me is for the people in these shrines and these temples and these groups and things like that to come together and have a conversation and not, this is not a conversation, in my opinion, that should be out there for the masses. Whatever comes out after it, sure, now we include the masses, but not ever. This is just something I don't believe that needs to be out on Front Street, because we respect our elders, we respect our leaders, we respect them because they put the work in. They read the books. They did stuff that, and I'm speaking, I have to come from my personal place just because I can't overgeneralize and speak for everyone. We rely on them to educate us and so on and so forth, but they're also human beings and they make mistakes and they're fallible and they can get caught up and they can go through human things. And that's the conversation that needs to be addressed, to recalibrate, to resurrect. Like that's what I'm hearing from him. But sometimes the way people express themselves rub other people the wrong way, and then now we're having personal problems again. And at the end of the day, what did I say earlier? The Kemetic community doesn't have time for egos. We don't have time for personal problems. We don't have time for that. The hour is too late to be bickering amongst each other about, being disrespectful. I'm not trying to disrespect you. I'm just saying what happened in this time period served the needs of the people in that time period. We should, and I say this very respectfully, should we learn the foundations of the scholars that were named earlier? Absolutely. Do we have to abide by it as though it's law, in 2021, some of that stuff just doesn't apply anymore. And this is just my super own personal. Menyet is tired of hearing Pan-Africanism and nationalism at the forefront. In that, I already accept these things. Why are we, it's like we just keep repeating ourselves over and over, and it's a broken record. And it's not to say you can't appreciate the classics. I appreciate the classics. I love the classics. The classics made me who I am. They educated me, as they will other people. But where are we building on top of it? We're just continuing the same thing, the same mistakes, and we're teaching it to the next generation so that they can keep spinning their wheels like we spin our wheels, like our ancestors spinned our wheels. Why are we doing this? That to me is like, oh my gosh, like this is a dreadful, dreadful problem, and it needs to be addressed and it needs to be talked about, but it doesn't need to be talked about amongst everyone. It needs to be talked about within. Point blank, period. Moving on.
Want to know what the true religion of ancient Kemet was, I will tell you. And I think you, Sanetta, of all people, will appreciate this. Okay? Do I have your attention, brother?
Yes, sir.
No, I just appreciate what I'm about to say.
I hear what you're saying, brother.
Okay.
I hear everything you're saying.
Okay. The true religion of ancient Egypt had nothing to do with yoga. It had nothing to do with meditating. It had nothing to do with all of this stuff that you see these people doing. Okay? I'm going to tell you what the true religion was of ancient Egypt. The true religion of ancient Egypt was a business. You understand what I'm telling you? The true religion of ancient Egypt was what, Senator?
You said business.
Business. That's it in a nutshell. If anybody tells you anything else, they don't know ancient Kemet and they haven't studied ancient Kemet. All right? They've studied.
All right. So, this one, again, not even that I disagree. It's the delivery. Where, when using the word religion, it wasn't, I don't want to say broken down, but to assume when the word religion is said that everyone understands what is meant by that is troublesome. Like that creates tension because we're assuming. So when we're saying religion, I'm like, I know I wrote it down. Did I write it down and have it readily available? Probably not. But anyway, so the problem with that is that, oh, here it is. Oh, no, here it's not. Key. Here it is. Okay. I got it together. All right, so there are multiple definitions for the word religion. So I'm going to start with that. By using a word that one, we already know this is a trigger word. We already know that people are in there rebellious, F the system, F the man, blah, 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 searching and so on and so forth. So by saying religion, it's an automatic trigger word and people automatically shut down with it. So, or they have a very strong reaction to it. I'll correct myself. They have a very strong reaction. So generally speaking, because of this reaction, and because it can be, not necessarily has to be, but it can be inflammatory, it causes misinformation. And this, again, is because it assumes everybody is thinking and using the same definition. So the first one, the belief in worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially personal gods, God or gods. That is not the definition here. The next one, number 2, a particular system of faith and worship. No, that is not the definition here. 3, a pursuit or interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance. Ring-a-ding-ding, that's what's being talked about here. 1, ascribing importance. So when we're using that specific definition, yeah, that makes sense. That's human beings. That's just how human beings are. Like, look at life in 2021. It's the same thing. We're human beings. We're people. We're people in a culture. We're people in a community. As much as I try my best to, you know, read my 42 and do my studying and, you know, do prayer and do, you know, all of that good stuff. I think about survival. That is people. People primarily think about survival. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to put my kids through college? How am I going to talk to my mate? How am I going to do this? How am I going these are the questions that people ask. And how do they satisfy these needs? They got to work. They got to make money. They have to survive. No society, no culture, no community is going to thrive if there's no commerce, if there's no money, because people need to survive. Point blank, period. In 2021, and this is, I'm like, I gotta do a little research here. So APA, the American Psychological Association, said stress in America, this came out March 11th of 2021. Their key findings were that Black Americans were most likely to report feelings of concern for the future. 57%. More than half of African American people or Black people in the United States are concerned about their future. What does that mean? Survival. If we want to just look at Generation Z, they were 46, so a little less than half were more likely to say that they're concerned about their mental health. Again, survival. You know, because of COVID, people lost jobs. People had to, you know, put themselves into different situations they're not used to, the sense of mental health, stress, money, all of these things, survival. So the Kemetic were people just like us. And you know, and it's thousands of years of them trying to figure out how to maintain their survival. That's being human. So I'll go on to say there was a Pew a poll from them, and it came out March 5th of 2021. And it said the financial impact, you know, from COVID. And it said majority of Black and Latinx people rate finances negatively. Black people said that their finances were fair or poor, 66%. 66%. If we look at Latinx, it's 59%. So people are concerned about their money. They're concerned about their stress levels. They're concerned about survival. Same thing as back then. So if we're going to say religion, you know, if we're going to use this word, remember we had, you know, economy, state and governance, religion, education, and family. We need these areas to be taken care of to survive. And not just survive, but to thrive. This is what it means to live in a community, in a society. So if we were to look at, and I know I mentioned Maslow earlier, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you've ever seen it or have not seen it, please Google it. So, excuse me, you can get a visual. But only after the psychological and safety areas of human needs are addressed and taken care of, can people start to think about higher level things. When people can think about education, when people can spend money on education, when people can spend time and money on leisure activities, on religiosity, and so on and so forth, yada, yada, yada. And when I say religiosity, I'm saying about that supreme being, like the first two definitions, where, how can I put that? We can't move forward if we're constantly on the hamster wheel of survival and just worrying about survival. Once the basic needs are taken care of, religion, regardless of the goal of the individual, whether the person is looking for salvation, whether the person is looking for self-betterment, self-awareness, elevating themselves, like being their higher self, you know, all that kind of language. Whatever the person's goal is, Human beings use religion, the function of the first two definitions of religion, to encourage them to move beyond a life of self-centeredness and pure animal instincts and survival. So if we move past survival, now we start to think about morals, values, ethics. Who am I? Who do I want to be? How do I want my family to be? Once you can provide for your family, now you can, oh, I'm going to put him in soccer. I'm going to put him in basketball. I'm going to, like we start to have these higher thoughts, but, and some people just, I don't want to say, they're very much into economics, and that's okay too. But it's the function of it that I think it's that a little bit should have been added there for the audience to just, make sure that there was no misunderstanding there. Oh, I'm sorry, I left something out. Religion, generally speaking, and again, we're talking about the first two definitions. Religion, generally speaking, fulfills human higher needs: comfort, camaraderie, community, respect of oneself, and respect of others, or earning the respect of others. A lot of times in the United States, I don't know about other countries, but I don't care what nobody think about me. I don't care. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. Because we're not an island unto ourselves. You care about what other people think of you because it's going to keep you alive. You care about what other people think of you because it's going to keep a job. You care about what other people think of you because it's not going to get you knocked over the head. So as much as we want to say, oh, you don't care about what anybody thinks, yes, you do, because it's survival. It is a part of our survival. If you truly didn't care, then, you'd probably be getting stabbed and punched in the face. Because you would literally do and say any and everything you wanted to all the time. And then, we like to talk about conscience and all these other things. But like, religion serves that purpose for many, many people. So I think it's very, and if we want to say commerce and business fulfills higher needs for people, comfort, camaraderie, community, respect, I could dig that too. But I just don't want it to, the implications. I don't want to leave anything to be assumed. Again, that's why I'm making this video. So let's listen.
Books written about ancient Kemet by people who probably should not have been writing about ancient Kemet. And the reason why I'm bringing this to you is I took 3 years of my life off. Y'all haven't seen me on side of the TV. Y'all haven't seen me on many other platforms, barely even my own platform, because all I've been doing is studying. Because I promised myself that when I came back, I would come back with something of true value for the people that they could bring into their lives currently and make use of it. Because it doesn't make sense to study ancient Kemet if it can't do anything for you. That's retarded. That's stupid. That's just religious behavior. You might as well stay in the black church. You might as well stay in the black church. And this is what Dr. Ben said when he said, don't let them make a religion of it. This is what Job said when he said, we do not study ancient Kemet in order to put ourselves in ivory towers of spirituality. He said that. Read it. It's in his work. Read it. It's Civilization of Barbarism or African Origin of Civilization, one or the other, or both. And also Great African Thinkers by Van Sertima. Job said that.
So can I ask you a question, brother?
Sure.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure thing, my brother.
So what is wrong with adding on to the lessons of Kemet? Are we supposed to stay and practice the old practices of Kemet? We are in 2021. You telling me that we are not that intelligent where we could carry on the lessons of our elders, of our ancestors that brought Kemet to us and add and finish on adding to the teachings? Because to me, Kemetic yoga is healthy. That's a healthy thing right there. That keeps the people in shape. That keeps our, you can look at us and see that we are totally out of shape. So when I see Kemetic yoga and people getting into it and they bringing in the ancestors, I think that's keeping the ancestors alive. When I see that, when I see meditation, when I see that, when I see meditation is only focus, commitment, and it's like a form of prayer. What is negative about that, Shakka? Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question, Senator.
No, answer the question, brother.
I'm answering it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm answering it. How would you feel if I misrepresented you? Would you take kindly to that?
Ooh, all right. So logical fallacy alert. Answering a question with a question is not an answer. And then it's appealing to emotion, which is another fallacy. Because, and I know people, oh, but he's making a point. Yes, I understand the point that's trying to be made. It's, again, my function of this video is, if we're going to say we're Kemetic, we need to all step it up. And everybody doesn't need to step it up in the same way. And I'm not trying to say that to be challenging or belittling or anything like that. I'm just saying, when I say I'm Kemetic, I'm trying my best to represent. And, you know, again, it was high culture. I'm trying to hold myself up high. And I want that for other people within the community. So that's why I say that. So when it comes to answering a question with a question and appealing to one's emotion, emotions lie. Emotions are misleading. Emotions can be manipulated. So answering a question with a question and then having the answer start to do with emotions, like, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous habit to have in conversation, in, you know, as things are going. So that was my commentary on that one.
Of course not.
Okay, it's that simple. I have no problem. I said earlier, and I wish we had a stenographer so people could take down what I said. I said I have no problem with Kemetic yoga. I said I think Kemetic yoga is beautiful. I said I think that Isser Rahotep made a contribution to the Black community by creating Kemetic yoga. I said that. I also said that I myself want to take Kemetic yoga. I said that. I think it's very healthy, and I think it's good for you. What is not good are the lies that are told about Kemetic yoga. Okay. Because when you tell lies about it, then you are not adding on to the lessons. You are misrepresenting the lessons. And there is no profit. Well, actually, apparently there's a lot of profit in misrepresentation. And people, if you want to learn anything, if you want to learn anything and pay attention, there is a lot of profit in misrepresentation. There is as much profit or more in misrepresentation than there is in representation. And I hope lawyers are paying attention to that one. Okay? Misrepresentation. In fact, that's usually what a lawyer does. They call it representation, but what is he usually doing? Misrepresenting the facts to get his client off. Am I right? Mm-hmm. Okay? So no matter which way you go, there's a lot of money in it. Because at the end of the day, it's business. And so what I'm trying to tell the people is that, so I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. And I think it's a good example because, number one, it keeps me away from the H word. So we don't have to talk about the external cause of the demise. We can talk about the internal cause. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, right? Our misrepresentation is, nobody benefits from that. There is no benefit from that. Get this thing out. I picked up and watch Ashby. And, or better yet, I ain't even got to use that. I can just hold the book up in front of the camera. This right here, right? They'll tell you that is a Kemetic yoga movement. Straight up. That's what they'll tell you. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. That ain't got nothing to do with it.
I'm pulling who?
Don't quote me on it, but I think it's one of the Ramesses. I know that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, probably the third. Okay. Or the fourth. So the point I'm making is that pose has literally nothing whatsoever to do with yoga. They will tell people that that's what they're looking at. That they're looking at a yoga movement, and that's what was practiced in ancient Egypt. And what I'm saying is, when you do that, when you tell people that, number one, you're lying. Okay, it's a lie. They were not doing that as yoga in ancient Egypt. Where the fuck did this thing go? Give me 1 second. I have this picture here that I want to pull up. It's of the you've heard of the lotus position, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Oh, this is a perfect example. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So share my screen and share screen. Cool. All right, and share. Right. So, Sa, you see this picture right here?
Yeah, I see it.
You see how this guy is sitting?
Yes.
Okay. Some people call that the lotus pose, the lotus position. Okay. Some people call that the Sukhayana position. Right. It's a term I think from Hatha Yoga, which means the easy pose. They call it the easy pose, not because it's easy, but because it increases your ease, your sense of ease. Okay. So that's what they call that pose. And what these people, there it is. Again, do you see that pose?
Yes.
Right. Her foot is up on her leg. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you something. I hope I can find it because you see a bunch of shit you're not even supposed to be saying right now. But in fact, you know what? I'm going to read this to you, sir. I want you to hear this. All right. Do you know who this man is?
Yes, of course. Come on, man.
Who is that?
Black Panther, brother.
That's the Black Panther, right?
Rest in peace to our brother.
Okay. Now, you see the man on the right with my arrow is? Yeah. That is not Chadwick Boseman.
Right.
You know who this is?
Who is it?
That is Professor Femi Biko. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I put that up there because I wanted to bug people out. Professor Femi Biko is one of my favorite professors. He teaches in London, England, in the UK. All right. Now, Robin Walker, who wrote the book When We Ruled. You know that book, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Robin Walker, who wrote that book, this is what he said about Femi Biko. He said Femi Biko is one of the most important and brilliant scholars in the UK. That's what Robert Walker said about Femi Biko. Now, Sanel, you want to hear something?
Yes, go ahead.
I disagree with him. I do not think that Femi Biko is one of the most important and brilliant scholars in the UK. I think that Femi Biko is one of the most important and brilliant scholars in the fucking world. You understand? This dude is one of my intellectual heroes. He's one of the people that made my mind great. You understand? That's why I'm showing him to you. I know you never heard of him before, but I'm showing him to you for a reason. You follow?
Right.
I want you to hear what he said because he said it perfectly. Okay? He said it at a conference at London College. Dr. Femi Biko. Okay? This is what he said. And I hope you listen because you're never going to see this or hear this.
I'm listening, brother. I'm right here listening.
All right. He said, it is not for the African to attempt to establish whether or not there are resonances to be found between African religion and that of Latin America, or African religion and that of India. It is really rather India to try to reestablish these connections with its source. We've seen a process during the 80s and increasingly in the 90s in which the African has attempted to seek the soul of the black folk from Arabia, to seek the soul of the black folk from Europe on the part of Christianity. Now there's a development and increasing interest, it seems, to seek the soul of the black folk in India. And yet, while they are seeking travels, no matter what the connections, while the African travels to Palestine, Israel on a pilgrimage, as it is now the habit in Nigeria, people travel to Israel, they come back, they receive a title. The title is JP. That means Jerusalem pilgrimage, right? And the Muslims, likewise in Nigeria, they go over to Mecca and they come back with the title. They come back with the title El Hajj, El Haji. And yet both of these, in their mindset, as it has been sold to the mind, they're traveling to the Holy Land. And yet the Holy Land is under our feet. Ta Neta. The Holy Land itself, if we listen to the ancestral voices, it's under our feet. So Mecca becomes richer and richer, while our resources and the people who contribute to Mecca become poorer and poorer. And Israel becomes richer and richer, and our people go back home with titles, which such titles that in African history at a critical point just before the Great Ma'afa or the slave trade, because we've been here before. The instrument which divided us was not race directly. The instrument which divided us was often religion. That's what he said. That's what he said. Okay? And these people who have come into the Kemetic community with their yoga and with their meditation and with their Asian practices, because here they go right here. Here's 4 of them, right? One second. I'm going to show you. Here you go. Not only did we get stuck with these 3 religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, right? But then they want to come back. They want to come back and then add more religion on top of it. Religion was the thing that divided us. Why would you add more of the same on top of it? So they came back and now they added the Holy Vedas or the Rig Veda, right? Not only do they add the Rig Veda, but then they also add these, right? They add Christian mysticism to it. They add Kabbalah to it. And they tell you that all of these things are African. They want to add the I Ching. They want to add Qigong, right? And they want to dress it up in Kemetic clothing and tell you that it's African. And it's not African. None of that shit is African. Right? They want to dress it up and they want to put it behind the book of the dead and say, here you go, brother. Come spend some money with me and catch this. It's fake. They are Asia files. That's what they all are. They are Asia files. What is the Asia file? A person interested in Eastern culture. What is Eastern culture? Go look it up. Eastern culture generally refers to the societal norms of countries in Far East Asia, including China, Japan, Vietnam, North Korea, and South Korea, and the Indian subcontinent. Now, I have a question for you. Did they say anything about Africa? In any event, the point I'm making to you, brother, is that if you listen to what Femi Biko said, the people he was talking about are some of these very people I'm talking about right now. That's why he said in the 80s and increasingly in the 90s. He was talking about them. And he said that back in the 90s.
So he right though. Unpopular, you know, and I already know I'm probably gonna hear people's dissatisfaction, but that is a true thing. Like that is a real thing. And as I said before, people are so distracted by the tools that it's kind of like, again, we bring the practice from our former experiences, religiosity experiences, and we bring those habits with us into Kemeticism. So we want to reject the Abrahamic stuff because that's what was done to us through the Ma'afa and this and that. So then we look at Asia instead. It's like, and then no, he is 1,000% correct with that. There are a good amount of people who do that. And I'm not saying that you can't look at some of the things from the other systems, that you can't say, you know, I like yoga. I mean, I've done yoga. Some forms are okay, some forms are not okay. I do it for exercise and health and things like that, but it's not part of our spiritual practice. You know, like, unless you just, like, you could be a bodybuilder, you could lift weights, you could be a soccer player, you know, like it's just another thing to do for physical exercise. If you like to, you know, do it, if it helps you calm down, if it, you know, because we do understand energy and this, that, and the third. And I know, like, people, oh my God, the mysticism thing, but, you know, there are some things that are good in the 21st century that we can include in our practice, but we need to be very, very emphatically clear that it is not Kemetic. That's like, I could cook, but some days I might not want to cook. So if I go out and I buy food at a restaurant and I bring it back home and I put it on my plate, it's my food. And if I give it to somebody, oh yeah, look at this food, but I didn't make it. Like, that's the distinction that's not being made. And that's the point that, like, that is so, so, so important, because it's very misleading. And that whole idea of, oh, it was ours anyway, when he said that, it's oversimplified, and in a lot of cases it's not even true. But you know, it's good intention gone wrong, it's misinformation gone awry, it's miseducation gone awry. It's like, you know, it's no one thing. It's no one person like, oh, I'm just trying to take everybody's money and I, you know, I'm just this, that, and third. Some people, yeah, it probably is that. Some people it's they really was trying to do something nice. Some people it was they weren't taught. And this is what they came across and said, oh, hey, this might be helpful for people, and put it out there. So it's a mix of things. But again, since we're not a homogenous group, we need to come together as a group to create canon, to create like, what is this thing all about? So yes, it's about economics, but yes, again, like I said, it's about governance, it's about religion, and when I say that, I'm saying in the spiritual way. It's about education, it's about family, it's about those social institutions that create a powerful and strong community. You have to have them all. You cannot have one more than the other. As soon as one is out of whack, they all are out of whack. So now that they're all out of whack, we can start trying to fix it. I think the other point that he made is the idea of understanding and being able to differentiate dogma and tradition. So dogma meaning these are the practices, these are our culture, our tradition. Again, we're Reconstruction, we're, you know, and it might look different in the UK, it might look a little different in Brazil, it might look a little different in South Africa, it might look different in California, it might look different in Texas, Detroit, Atlanta, New York. Like, it's gonna take on a little bit of different flavor to meet the needs of that local segment of the wider community. Like, that's how human society works. So let's keep going.
In the 90s, in the early 90s, he said that shit. He said it is Indian to do that. That is not African. And that's what they're doing with this Kemetic yoga, with the meditation, with the high priestism, because it's, you notice all of these crowds run together. They all run together. I got images of them in that PowerPoint with them all together, so they can't say, come on, I'm done with these motherfuckers. They all gonna be denying each other. Yo, I don't know him. You're like, nah, you're bullshit, motherfucker. I hear you all on the plane together. Don't eat. I don't hear that shit. You're all run together. Okay? You're trying to pass off something for what it's not, for what it simply is not. I told you that the true religion of ancient Egypt was business, right? It was business. Now, the fact that, now here's what I give all these people credit for. If I'm telling you that the true religion of ancient Egypt was business, and all of these people that I just named practice business, then they are following the true religion of ancient Kemet. The business part of it, right? What they're doing when you pay them money for a retreat or for a class, that's business. That is the religion of ancient Egypt. Money transaction, value. Okay, that's the true religion of ancient Egypt. Now I have to tell you, there's something that's called the twofold philosophy. Okay, that's exactly what the quote says. Fake ass priest. That's exactly what it says. Okay, so now the quote said exactly that. So that's not. Oh look, now nobody can read for themselves. Look, I just read what the fuck the quote said, and now you're saying that's what nobody. The quote doesn't say. See, that's how you know these motherfuckers into mind control. That's how you know they're cults. They want to control your fucking mind. They want to. You will read something in black and fucking white. Read it, and they will tell you it don't say that. It's like a guy when his girl walk in him and she catch him with another woman. He goes, "Oh baby, it's not what you think." He putting on his clothes. She getting dressed too, and he telling his woman, "Oh baby, it's not what you think." That's bullshit. It's exactly what I read. I didn't put any words in Femi Biko's mouth. Femi Biko said that. You understand what I'm saying? I didn't say it. Dr. Biko said it. Now, if you have a problem with Dr. Biko, you need to contact him and let him know. Okay? Look, I'm not one of these retards that you fool with your bullshit. All right? You go ahead with that bullshit. You talk to these retards out here that don't know better. Youngin, I'm your elder. Go someplace else. Goodbye. I hate when these young boys try to get at me like they know something, because they don't. Okay? It's the fakery and the foolery. That's what that is. Okay? All of this bullshit. Okay? That's what it all is. When I show you the documentation, that's the motherfuckers really gonna get smacked inside the head and be, because they'll come up on your platform talking about, here's what I want you to do for me, son, to show your audience your integrity. I want you to ask them one question when I show you the shit that I show you. Okay? When I show you what I show you, right? When I show you what I show you, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, I knew that already. The only thing I want you to do, Sanetta, is I want you to come back and ask them, if you knew that, why didn't you teach that? Why didn't you tell that to anybody? Why did Shakka have to come and say it? Why did Shakka have to come and show it? That quote, Femi Biko, has been around since 95, right? How come nobody, that's the first time you ever seen that on your show?
Let me ask you, Shakka, would you mind reading it again?
Would I mind reading it again?
Yes.
For what? I read it. Why do I have to read it again? I read it. I don't have to read it again. I'm not a student in his class. He's too stupid to teach me. I'm not a student in his class. What's wrong with you?
Come on, Shakka.
Bro, come on, bro. Look, let's keep it 100. All right, he's not good enough to teach me. So with all due respect, okay, with all due respect, I'm not in it for the games. If cats really want to find out what's going on, either way they're going to find out. They're going to find out here or they're going to find out someplace else. But either way they're going to find out. Okay, I'm hoping that I can just get through with the presentation. Like I said, I'm not showing anything right now. Right? For people to see, they're going to come to the Friday night build. I'm going to show you everything. But the point that I'm making is that these people are fakes and they're foolery. And I'm going to tell you why. For one simple reason. Right? I'm gonna show you something. Hold up. Because people want me to get into the PowerPoint so bad. You know, since people want to get into the PowerPoint so desperately, I'm gonna take them in. Here we go. Okay. Now, sir, let me show you something. Share my screen. Share my screen. Now, hold up. Didn't I hear that Zion Lex told him showed him in the middle lecture that ancient Egypt did have slavery and he had to agree?
No, Shakka. He didn't show him because they was on the phone. But Zion Lex did tell him on the phone that slaves did exist, and Jabari agreed somewhat. He agreed somewhat, but you know, he was saying there's more to it than that. So yeah.
Yeah, but he agreed though. Okay.
Jabari been through all that, man.
Okay, now he been through all that. Come on, here we go with the protectionism again. That's what I'm used to now.
Man, why are you saying protection, brother?
Hey, look.
I'm gonna ask you a question, Shakka. I want to ask you a real serious question.
Hold on one second. Let me show you something. Yo, do you see this? Hold on a second. Do you see this right here?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Come, you don't answer me. I don't know if the thing is so long if we cut off or not.
Yeah,
all right. You see how this brother's sitting?
All right, so he goes on and he moves on, and he essentially is talking about how with the Kemetic yoga it gets misrepresented, and how the different forms and things like that are actually things that have to do with scriblehood, and different poses meant different things and stuff like that. So I am just skipping that because and again, it is a great build as far as him breaking down the different symbols and things like that.
You know, the 7 principles. What's the purpose of the book of coming forth by day and by night? What is the purpose of all of these? You know, you know what I'm talking about. The Ma'anics practices and all of that. It had to be more to it than just money, Shakka. What about the ways of life? The 7 principles: truth, justice, righteousness, reciprocity, balance, harmony, and order. What about all the other stuff? Go ahead. I'm gonna let you teach, brother. Okay. You're gonna teach.
What I'm trying to tell you is that it works like this. If I give you glasses, son, and my brother whom I love dearly, if I give you glasses and the glasses got polka dots on them, how are you going to see the world? Like polka dots.
Right.
If I give you glasses and they got stripes, how are you going to see the world?
Like stripes.
Like stripes. That's why they say rose-colored glasses, because you got glasses rose-colored, so you see the world in a rosy way. The problem with the Kemetic community is you took a bunch of religious Negroes out of Christianity and they brought religion with them into Kemetic studies. You understand?
I got 2 things with this one. So the first thing that he's saying is you got a bunch of people who were religious and they brought it with them. Yeah, that's how human beings do things. Like that's just how people do things. Yeah, I don't have anything else other than that. Like that's a very human thing to do. Like you try to assimilate, and again, you go through that whole process of you know, unlearning, you know, like it's a whole process that one goes through. So saying, and again, he didn't say the Kemetic community, he said Kemetic studies. So now that to me is very different, because just studying it, you know, like it gives it a little different flavor. It's very, very subtle, but there is a difference. Just in the word use, or the change of the word use. The other analogy that he gave about seeing the world with polka dots, seeing the world with stripes, with the different glasses, the rosy colored glasses, this, that, and the third. Now, again, personally, I don't have a problem with looking with polka dots, looking with lines, looking with roses, because they're not permanent glasses. When you see polka dots, maybe you'll, like, if you can't see everything, maybe you can focus on certain areas. When you see lines, you'll see something else. Having different perspectives, even if, you know, like I said before, like, you know, certain things happen, things change, this, that, and third. Human beings change and evolve. So if right now you can handle polka dots, do polka dots. Then change the glasses, because nobody's prescription stays the same for the rest of their life. It just doesn't. I mean, generally your eyes get worse, technically, and you need a stronger prescription. But even that analogy would still work, where you get a stronger prescription. Now you're stronger, you're deeper in the knowledge. You know, you got the little bit that you saw with the polka dots, you got the little bit you saw with the stripes, you got the little bit with the rose. Now you could use blue glasses. Now you could have no glasses. Now you could have HD glasses. Now you could put on Oculus and look around. Maybe, you know, like you can, there are steps and stages that people go through. And I think it's very short-sighted to act as though, or imply that it should just be A, B, C. It has to be this way. Truth, like I said, relative. Ma'ati is a thing. There are many different versions of the truth, and everybody is at a different place at a different time with a different body of knowledge, a different body of experiences. So until this is codified and other conversations are had, it's the process of people learning and growing. It might not be in our lifetime. It might be in our kids' lifetime. It might be in our grandkids' lifetime. It might be in our great-grandkids' lifetime that all of this will come together. But right now, we need to work on moving in that direction, not just I'm right, you're wrong. This is the one true way. This is the only way. This, because again, we could be in down north Kemet, we could be up south Kemet, we could be like whatever nome, if you will, that we're at, where it's gonna be a little bit different. It'll be kind of the same, but you're gonna get a little different flavor. So having different experiences, having different analyses and points, and looking at things from different angles, I think that's a good thing for us, because that's how we're going to challenge ourselves and grow and become better as a community.
That's why I say it got hijacked. It got hijacked. If you remember, and I'm going to use Jabari now for this. You remember during that debate? No, because this shit blew my mind when I heard him say. Yeah, real talk. I'm not going to, me and Jabari, we could go at it any day of the fucking week.
Oh, shit, don't do it.
Any day of the week. Any day of the week.
Shit.
Okay?
I'll pay you for this one, Shakka.
Yeah, okay, cool. No problem. And when I win, I want my money and his. Okay?
Winner takes all, you saying?
I want it all. Fucking
winner takes all.
Winner takes all. That's the way it's supposed to be. Okay?
You need to learn these things.
Hold on, but check this out. See, now look. Let me just idiot in the chat. The idiot boy Jabari, because he's an idiot.
Brother, what's up with the name? Call me.
That's what you doing, brother. All right, listen. I'm just being me, because everybody else gets to be them.
Say hello, brother. Because when I let Jabari loose on you, don't get mad at me, Shakka. Don't want to not talk to me for a year. When I let Jabari loose on you, don't get mad at me now.
Please let him loose. Look, let me explain something to you. Watch this. He's in there saying, exactly, I'm glad you put that up. He's saying, I'm complaining. Now, stop. What a bitch move to make.
No, come on, Shakka. Serious, brother.
I want to know when you one day someone come on here and just gonna be like, Shakka, go ahead, do you. One day.
Do you, brother.
Okay? One day in the future. Let me show you what a bitch move this is. And only a bitch will make it. I gotta say this. Look at this. He said, I'm complaining that people in the Kemetic community are making money. Now, sir, I didn't complain about it. I just said it was a fact. I didn't say, he said Ancient Kemet was just about making money, and then he begs for CashApp to be in the screen. That's a bitch. He's a bitch. You know why? Because I never complained about anybody making money. The problem I have is with people making money through misrepresentation. There's a difference. If you're too stupid to understand that and your IQ is too fucking low, you should get your money back from Cornell University. You corny motherfucker. That's what you should do.
Hey, let me ask you, Shakka, what really happened between you two, brother? What happened?
What happened?
No, real talk. What happened, brother? What happened?
I'll tell you the truth, right?
What made you fall out with him? Because he ain't fell out with you, but what made you fall out with him?
I'm a real dude, right? I'm from the street. That's just the truth. Everybody, a lot of people that know my pedigree, they know my real pedigree. I'm really from the street. Okay? I'm not interested in what other people's opinion are about me. Come on, Shakka, and whatever. I don't give a fuck. Okay? I'm not here to please nobody.
Right, but just tell us what happened, brother, so we can see if it warrants this type of behavior, brother.
What it is, I'm gonna tell you what it is. It was really, with all due respect, the lack of respect shown on his part at
all right, so remember how I said earlier, I don't care what nobody thinks about me, I don't care this, I don't care that. That's cool personally, but it reflects on the rest of us. Like when it's kind of like those moments when you go into the movies and you see some people and you're like, oh my God, I hope they don't act out, or oh, I hope they don't do that. Oh, they gonna make us look bad. It's the same thing. So, and again, I very much respect what's being said for the most part, and agree with what's being said for the most part. I understand everybody has a different walk of life, a different way of expressing themselves, a different way with connecting with the audience, and so on and so forth. Like, there is no one tool to reach everyone. And, yeah. However, and I know there is one part, and I don't believe he said it, but the video is coming to a close, and most of the rest of the video is what we just watched, where it's a lot of talking about Jabari and a lot of talking about, F that, F this, N-word this, N-word that, yada, yada, yada. So this is one reason why I don't want to participate in that kind of arena. I'd rather just kind of stay in my own lane. Because it's cool to be yourself, but why is it okay to indulge in not being our best self? Meaning minding our mouth, minding that the next generations are going to watch this. What are they going to think? What are they going to do? How are they going to follow or not? Like, what do we really want? Because if I'm just sitting here concerned about, well, this is just me, this is who I am, what's that going to do for my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, for the legacy, for the community? Like, you know, and I understand we're all imperfect beings, and who am I to critique any one person? I have faults just like anyone else. But it's just when people get on the internet, and I'm being general now because it's not just Brother Shakka. I've seen other people over the years, and they get up there and they're claiming Kemet, and they're calling the N-word every 2 seconds. They're cussing every 2 seconds. That's what people think our community is about. Like we're a bunch of battle rappers, ready and aggressive, and this, that, and the third. And it's unfair to the rest of us. It's not okay. It's like if y'all remember Maury back in the day, before he always had Not the Daddy, you know, that he would have ones where the mom would come and she's like, I'm still sexy, I still got it. And the parent, and the kids were like practically traumatized, never wanted to go nowhere with their mother. And that's their this is the same thing. You know, there is a point where Sonnetter comes on there and he says, you know, you left and Jabari was the one who picked up the mantle and kept it going. And this is going to be real unpopular. It's going to be real unpopular, and I'm prepared to take whatever heat may come. But Brother Jabari, because I you know, and I apologize because I forget his official title, you know, to give the respect. But he picked it up because so many people in the Kemetic community just don't want to be bothered with the sassafras, nonsense, name calling, disrespect, going back and forth, this, that, and the third. And that's been my position for a very long time. I didn't want to say anything because, one, I'm a teacher. And my livelihood is about being an example to young people. Trying to be realistic, but being an example to them. And I don't want them to find a video of somebody calling me out of my name, of being disrespectful to me because they're watching. And that's very important to me. That's very, very important for the future generations. It's very, very important for my Kemetic brothers and sisters who are out in California and nobody has heard about Kemeticism, but perhaps have seen me. I reflect on them. This reflects on me. And that's why it needs to be cared about. It needs to be cared about. And it just has to be said because no one wanted that. No one wanted to be involved in the fray, especially when it's arguing about things that is. And again, I'm going into an area where I'm like, oh, I know I'm going to hear this, but it is what it is. As Kemetic people, why are we battling Christians? For what? We already have our beliefs, or we're already establishing our beliefs. We are too busy. We are too busy to be battling other people who, how is this helping? How is this helping the community? Maybe it helps new people to understand. Maybe it helps people to, you know, but how does it really help the community? How does it help the future generations to battle Christians about the authenticity, about the epistles and the letters written to Paul? Who cares? We are Kemites. We are Kemites. We need to be about our own stuff. We need to be about our own morals and values. We need to be about establishing our own stuff, not wasting time on frivolous conversations with people who don't even care about us, who have no intention of doing anything positive or working with us to create a better community, a better world, a better township, region, or anything like that. The only intention is to intellectually masturbate, feel good about myself. Oh, I'm so smart. And move on, and don't care about the rest of us who now have to face the backlash and be called Hotep this and Hotep that and ha 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 jokes on you because of the behavior of others. And it's not fair. It's not fair for the rest of us who really want this and really want to live this and really want to pass it on to our kids to have to suffer from a bunch of people arguing with each other in front of the world, in front of people who aren't even part of our community, who don't give a crap about our community. It's not fair. And, oh, life's not fair. Yeah, life's not fair. But as Kemetic people, we're supposed to follow codes of morals and ethics and values. What do we value if we're just arguing with people all the time? What does that say about us as a community? That we're just a bunch of arguing people that are hot-headed. Just like yoga is not something to pass on, being hot-headed and arguing with people is not something to pass on. It's not. It's not good enough anymore. Maybe that was cool for a certain time period. Maybe it was necessary for a certain time period, but it's irrelevant now. Arguing with other groups about our beliefs, okay, maybe once in a while if somebody really gets disrespect, but again, why? Like, if you just want, why are we feeding into that? Why are we arguing with people who, like, that's like arguing with your haters. They like, that's the one thing about America, like, and Western thinking that's good. Like, stop feeding the haters. What are we doing right now as a community? What are we really doing for real? So, I want to say, I guess, move towards closing this video out because this is quite long, because these kinds of videos are always like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours long, which is another reason why I don't watch them, because they're so long. But violation of the 42. Now, I understand that it was said, I don't even know where it is, but I'll try to my best to remember it off the top of my head. But the 42 Tepra and Ma'at were the prerogative of the king. As of the 21st century, 2021, there is no king. There is no one person who's in charge of this group, because we're a bunch of small groups all over the place. So until we come together and decide how and what this is going to work, the king of the Kemetic community needs to be the 42 Tepra and Ma'at as they were written. Now, granted, we've got different versions. There are a lot of different interpretations. I would suggest that we stick to, if not budge, we stick to Faulkner and that interpretation until we, as a community, decide which interpretation we all wish to embrace and utilize and say, this is it. So I am quoting an English interpretation, but if you wanted to look, the Purdom Haru, it's plate from the book. It's the yellow version of the Purdom Haru by Budge. Plate 30 and 32, it's page 194 to 203. I gave the extended version, not just the, the simplified 42. Or Faulkner. So Faulkner's book doesn't have any page numbers, which I just hate that so much. It's so annoying. But if you literally open the Faulkner version and the one with all the big pictures, and you open it to the middle, and you literally, it's like both sides are folded in, and you unfold it, that's the page I'm referring to. So violations of the 42. And I'm going to say the numbers different versions may transcribe them in or translate them in different orders and so on and so forth, because I've seen people put certain things in other orders. So if you're just using a regular Google version, then you know, that's that. So violations of the 42. I will not act deceitfully. So the definition of deceitfully, so being cunning, being sneaky, you know, stuff like that. I will not attack anyone. That I would like to say I'm not going to assume, but calling people names, abiding by logical fallacies, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's attacking. Whether it be physically, with your words, with your thoughts. If you're attacking someone, you're breaking the 42. I will not be an eavesdropper or pry into matters to make mischief. So I put that one down specifically because, again, with the Kemetic community, we have a lot of people self-identifying, but it's really a form of voyeurism. It's really a form of voyeurism. It's a bunch of people kind of watching along, seeing what's going to happen. Oh my gosh, they said this. Ooh, what's going to happen next? Blah, blah, blah. Like, if you read some of the titles of the videos, they're very inflammatory. It's like, ooh, what's going to happen? You know? So I will not be an eavesdropper or pry into matters to make mischief. Mischief was made. I will not speak against anyone. I will not cause terror. I will not utter fiery words nor be a man or woman of anger. This is who I am. No, it's not good enough. Because you would want me to be at my best. And again, and I respect the fact that, like, you know, I'm kind of implying emotion with that. But it's the idea of when we are talking about community, we want and expect reciprocity. So I will not utter fiery words nor be a man or woman of anger. That doesn't mean you can't get angry, you can't get upset or anything like that, but just lashing out and calling names and doing this and doing that. Like, if you're angry, take it up with the person. The Kemetic community doesn't have time for people to air everything out love and hip hop style. Like, no. I will not stop my ears against right or wrong. So that isn't necessarily for this video, but for the reactions of other people to this video. Some people will just see the delivery and be like, oh my gosh, he said that. Oh, he was cussing. Oh, this, oh, that. There's a lot of stuff that was said that was true in there. But because we're offended or we didn't like the messenger, now we're going to stop our ears. That's breaking 42. I will not stir up strife. That definitely happened. Again, stirring up strife using logical fallacies. Not, you know, we're talking scholarship. Say that 3 times fast. Sheesh. But then don't abide by good research. We don't abide by like the rules of research. We don't abide by, you know, of testing hypotheses. We don't, you know, again, like I keep saying, logical fallacies. I mean, I swear I'm beating people over the head with that one. So yeah, stirring up strife by not being clear, by overgeneralizing, by assuming, by presenting things to an audience who all we know doesn't know, by attacking a person rather than their actions, with the name calling and so on. All of that is strife. I will not work grief or abuse anyone. So again, with grief, again, that has to do with like the reactions to people, or the reactions of people to the video, because I saw that in some of the reaction videos, and that's a no-no too. Like, but it also says I will not work grief or abuse anyone. So I could see from presentation style and from people's reactions that that one was broken on both sides. I will not act insolently, aka rude, or with violence. So when, and again, I'm not showing the whole video, but there's one point where one of the people watching this exchange was just like, I hate seeing you know, two brothers, why y'all got to tear yourselves down? F you, F you, F you. And it's like, why? Why is that necessary? Because it was a critique. It was a response. Why are you cussing people? Like, it's not like people said that, you know what I mean? Are we so in our own ego and our own feelings in our own head that we can't see that this person's like, yo, you're setting the whole house on fire and you're still inside. Please stop. And then F you. Like, why? Why would we do something like that? So, and then when we do, and I'm saying this like not necessarily about that exchange, but just in general, when we act rude, we alienate people. When we act rude, we push people away, we shut down, we put up walls, and then we're no longer a community. We no longer grow because, oh, they said this, oh, they said that, oh, that's their personality, oh, that. No, we have to work to overcome that. We have to work to overcome all of our character flaws. Because sometimes we got flaws and we wear them like a badge of honor. And that works for a time, space, and place. But for the long term, is that sustainable? Is that sustainable for all of us? I will not judge hastily. There's a lot of hasty judgments going on. Not to say that you can't judge. I mean, you know, we have minds, we can analyze, we can synthesize, we can do all of that. But are we being a little too quick with it? Take your time, sit back, think, analyze, go back and forth. Oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about that? And then come to a conclusion. Don't be all, and then make a decision all, you know, being all rash. I will not multiply my speech over much. In my mind, that's being long-winded. But in addition to that, which, you know, clearly this video is already at 3 hours, so long-winded. But multiplying one's speech over much is, you don't have to use the whole dictionary to make a point. You don't have to have 15, like the average attention span, literally, and this is an old statistic, I believe this is from 2015, is 12 seconds. The average adult, 12 seconds. Having 5-hour videos and this and that, like, so are we really educating, or are we about our ego? Are we about educating, or, like, you know, what is the function of this? And again, that's not just to this platform. That's not to necessarily the people presenting. I'm saying I've seen it in a couple different places. And if the Kemetic community, you know, if the push is supposed to be, okay, we're working on the pillar of education right now, this is not how you educate people. Yelling at people is not how you educate people. Being super long-winded and just talking the whole time. Not everyone's an auditory learner. Some people are visual. Some people, you know, need, you know, directions and diagrams and this and that. And like, so are we really educating our people? Do we know how to educate our people? Like, what does that look like? You know, like, we need to have more critical thought and analysis around that, for sure, in my opinion. I will not work treason or curse the king. So as I said, we don't necessarily have a king for the entire Kemetic community, or a, if we want to say, a leader or something like that. There is no one person. We have multiple leaders all over the place. We have multiple kings, or, you know, people with different titles all over the place. So since there is no one king and we're not one homogenous group, I interpret that to say the Kemetic community in general. So having conversations in front of people who are just being voyeurs, or people who are not privy, or people who, you know, have no context, that to me is treasonous, because now we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Now we're showing our behind to the world. What is that doing for us? So I will not speak scornfully. I will not behave with arrogance. I will not be overwhelmingly proud or seek distinctions. Ego. And again, I'm not just talking about this video. I'm talking about other people as well. I will not magnify my condition beyond what is fitting. So I know the rest of that ends, and it talks about like material goods and wealth, and basically don't be greedy. So I just wanted to start the beginning of that, because the way I interpreted it is, when I'm speaking about like these different online things, is that there is no one truth. There is no one way. We need to agree as a community that of what it is we're doing. So magnifying one condition, being, I know what this is. I know, yes, it's great to know, but if we're being community minded and not me minded, then, we need to shift how we are having these conversations. So, again, this idea of a true religion and calling names and this, that, and the third, I would like to encourage us as a group to kind of have a better understanding as far as what our goals are, what it is we want to do. Encourage us to think about the 5 social institution pillars, understanding human needs, and so on and so forth, to help us really build a community. I've said this before to my session MenyetAnkhEnMaat teacher, where I've said 70% of, and this is old, because I've heard this at least, I was still in college when I heard this, but 70% of African Americans or Black Americans are educated in urban schools, meaning we know the stereotypes about urban schools. And does that mean that everyone has, applies to that stereotype? Absolutely not. That's a generalization. Stereotypes are, I'm sorry, statistics are generalizations or snapshots. Again, you can't just use quantitative data. You need to use qualitative data. You can't just use numbers to create meaning for everything. You need to use like a mix. You need a healthy mix. You need to be holistic. So, considering that 70% of our people have been educated in the urban school district, which we know, generally speaking, making a generalization, that it's not exactly the shining pinnacle of education, we need to rethink if, again, our thrust and push now is we need to educate our people, we need to do this, we need to do that, blah, 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 blah. How are we educating? What does it look like? What are the standards? So on and so forth. I think the other thrust, and like I said, this is unpopular, as I said before, is we are thinking in the lens of Pan-Africanism, nationalism, and so on and so forth. And again, while that is very important and that is part of the foundation, I think it's very short-sighted for us to make that the center of being Kemetic and being part of the Kemetic community. Now I say that because now I'm moving on to, there's a part 2 to this video, which is like a whole lot of arguing and cussing. So that's why I didn't even bother. Then Jabari did a rebuttal, and then I believe Garfield did another rebuttal. So I watched all of them. Oh my gosh. Wow. 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 The 42 that I just read to you, all violated. I don't want to say all of them violated in each video, but each video violated ones off of that list. Again, there's no need to debate other groups about what we believe. If we are going to get out there, we need a severe Kemetic community rebranding, remarketing, we need a new something, because the argumentation, the all of that other stuff, like, nah, this ain't that. Again, like, I'm a millennial. I know the groups after me, the Gen Zers. If we continue like this, Gen Z kids are not going to become Kemetic. And they're not going to become Kemetic because we are being so ultra focused on one area that, and I'm not saying one area as in you know, we need to establish, like, you know, this is what we're about, this is who we are, and we need to make no apologies about it, but we need to flesh it out, because this next generation that's coming out, who's getting ready to get out of high school in the second, third, and then after that we got Generation Alpha. They're a whole different group. They are not like Gen X. They are not like millennials. They are very different, and they have different needs, and we are not speaking to their needs. They care about mental health. They care about the environment. They care about economics. They care about being spiritual and burning sage and all that cute stuff too. And I'm being a little facetious when I say all that cute stuff, because when I look online, I see a bunch of, oh, I'm just going to burn myself. Like I saw P. Diddy, oh, I'm burning sage. Like, it's trendy. It's cute. Being Kemetic isn't trendy or cute. It's a whole, literally life-changing lifestyle. Being educated, being spiritual, being about your money and survival, being about your family and your relationships, being about, when I say law, I'm talking about like 42 morals, values, and so on and so forth. We're not at the point where we have like an actual system of governance and governors, or, you know, whatever terms, a system of elders and judges. We don't have that yet. So as of right now, I'm just saying the 42. If we want to say, you know, some other things that have to do with that, but those laws. So they care about those things, and we're not talking about them. They care about being better people. They care about changing and not being like their parents being Gen Xers and millennials. So if we keep going as a Kemetic community, we're gonna lose them. We're gonna lose them, absolutely. And so we need to step our cookies up. We need to correct our mistakes. That's part of what Gen Z always is talking about. You know, that's why cancel culture exists. Because they're tired of the excuses. They're tired of doing the same thing and banging the head against the wall. It's not working. It's not working. So for the people who are very offended by what I've said, the people who are very offended by what Brother Shakka said, the people, you know, all of this stuff, we need to get out of our feelings, and we need to look at the future. There are other groups in this world that think 100, 200, 500 years ahead, and we're busy arguing amongst each other because we have personal beefs. We are going to lose. Period. We're going to lose. We need to change now. Now. Yesterday. We have to change. We have to figure out what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, what it looks like. We need more than just reading books all the time. You know, like that's just what it is. So I'm like, let me stop. So I'm just like, okay, stop presenting. All right. So when it comes to Brother Shaka's Friday night builds, I definitely intend on trying to attend, just because, and I know, you know, I did critique him and things like that, but at the end of the day, I think he's very educated. I want to learn from him. I think he has a lot to offer. Yeah, okay, the delivery, this, that, and third. But again, why did I critique the delivery? I critique the delivery because he's a reflection of me, and I want us to be better. So this is a long video, but if you've made it all the way to the end, I appreciate you. I definitely want to bring more content again about the everyday living. You know, hopefully after I go to the builds, you know, again, I might transform and grow even more as a Kemite. So feel free to join me on my YouTube, my Instagram, MenyetAnkhEnMaat. You know, I do my own little study groups. I do my own little thing. And then I do have my Facebook group, Kemetic Living in the 21st Century. And that is really just, again, a place for us to have discourse amongst ourselves so that we can figure this thing out and actually have something concrete to pass down to the next generations. I do not want us, this time period right here, right now, the birth of the 21st century, I do not want us to lay to waste the plowed lands. I do not want to waste the work of Dr. Ben. I don't want to waste the work of Dr. Clark. I don't want to waste the work of Shakka. I don't want to waste anything that people have done. We need to get rid of the negativity, the childishness, and all this other stuff, because we have bigger fish to fry. We have bigger things we need to worry about. That being said, the last thing, or my last point that I want to make is, in the follow-up, Brother Jabari did bring up that he thought that this was a personal thing. I also believe like a lot of the back and forth was a personal thing. So I am hopeful. And actually, I would like to put it out there. I don't know, I mean, who am I? I'm just some regular person, but I'm a regular person who cares. So I would like to see my two, because both of these people are elders to me. I would like to see my two elders sit down and actually figure this stuff out. Like, talk it out. If y'all gotta fuss and fight and whatever, talk it out, but stop letting it leak out for everybody else, because it's not okay. And when it comes to Brother Jabari, I would like to see a shift in the things that are debated about. I would like to challenge my elders to talk about something different. Please stop debating Christians. Please stop debating Muslims. Please stop debating these people. It's insignificant. It really is insignificant to the actual legacy. Like, it's how can I put it? It's passé. It's old news. The next generations, maybe people now, maybe people of the Gen X generation, people want to know what the Kemetic legacy can do for them here, now, and today. Please stop continuing stale conversations that don't benefit the whole. There was even the gentleman, I don't remember his name. I know he's an atheist. I know he's through, oh gee whiz, I can't remember his name. But I know he's through another group, and they were analyzing him and like debating about the origins of Christianity coming from Kemet. It's passé. There are already so many videos about this. Like, why are we reinventing the wheel? Please stop, because we have bigger things that we need to do. We don't need to be debating Amu or Tamu. We don't need to be, we need to work on ourselves. We need to do a lot of work within ourselves together. So I mean, I feel like I'm practically begging here, which I really hate that, but look, pride aside, please. I'm asking all of our leaders, from our elder leaders to our newer leaders, to our scholar leaders, to all of us, please stop. Please stop having woke or conscious battle raps. It's not doing anything for the next generation. And I respect if you disagree with me, that's fine. I respect if anyone wants to critique, if anyone wants to respond, that's fine. So long as it's with respect and, without the cussing and the, you know, name calling and the finger pointing and the waving. If we can sit and just talk like brothers and sisters, that's all I really want. So as I said, the whole purpose of this video was really to, yes, build upon what Brother Shakka was saying, kind of give some clarity for those who are maybe not as familiar, and to really just kind of put out there a call to action, like for our elders. I understand money is important. I understand building is important, but the direction that we're going, we need to talk to each other and go back to the drawing board as far as what this thing is looking like and how we want it to look like. Like, we need long-term planning, because Gen Z is watching, Generation Alpha is watching. And if the time is now, the time is yesterday. So I thank you, anyone who is watching this. I thank you for any responses, again, respectful responses. I look forward to the discourse. If you would like to comment on this video, if you would like to hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, you know how they always say that in those videos. Please feel free. Please feel free to join us over at Kemetic Living in the 21st Century over on Facebook. Please, I really want us to have a conversation, and really build and flesh this out as to what does it look like to be Kemetic in the 21st century? How does it help us? And all of that good stuff. So I'm going to close out with Amatu and Panatir, Sawatu Mente and Panatir, Au Dwa Maketi Paheru. Give yourself to nature daily. Keep yourself for nature daily. And may tomorrow be as today. Dua for watching. Shemiam Hatat.
Thank you for the building blocks you left us. As your spirit possessed us, yo, you blessed us.